Today's show is entitled Single Motherhood Are Women to Blame? Single motherhood. Are women to blame? Of course, we got to start off with the First Lady of Debate Talk for You hosting this particular program. And we definitely appreciate her. She's here. This is Emunah. Welcome to the show.
Shalom, shalom, Brother Sal. Thanks for having me back once again for the third season of Debate Talk for You. This is Emunah Israel, and it's good to be back. The hiatus was good, but I guess it's time to get back to work, so here we go. How's everything with you?
Everything is good. Tell the people about some of the projects. Emunah always got some projects going on. some of the new projects you have happening.
Definitely. I mean, if you follow me on social media, be like, dang, she could cook too. So I've just been really sharing. I see a lot of people have an interest in changing, to a more plant-based lifestyle if that's what you're into, or just substituting some meals. So I've been sharing that while I was on hiatus. We've been doing some writing. So Lip Balm is up, www.litbalm.com, and that's a place where we open up to have conversations and share our research about things that are going on in the community. So this is in-depth, information on things such as polygyny, which is a topic myself, Sister Mayanah, right now are tackling, not necessarily in the way you may think, but it's just to bring more information to the conversation. So Lip Balm, as well as I wrote a book. I wrote a novel. So, I've been quiet. I haven't been talking, but I still have been working. So definitely you can check me out on all social media, and you'll be able to get all the information that I just gave. But, the name of the novel is Island Love. It's about a young girl growing up. She's Caribbean heritage, growing up in the United States. And, a lot of Caribbean people, and so-called Black Americans, as the people say, Black Americans, but not Black Americans, we're all brothers and sisters, should be able to relate to this tale of a young girl who, she has a crush and she ends up choosing the right or the wrong one. So you have to read the book to find out. And that's available on Amazon as well.
All right. Once again, that's Emunah, the host of this particular program, the Relationship Challenge. We appreciate her. Let's introduce the home panel. We have some special guests joining us tonight as well on Debate Talk for You. Actually, Akwete is not going to make it tonight, but next time we have the Relationship Challenge, he's going to definitely be here. But we do have Ahwar Da Swordsman here. Ahwar Da Swordsman, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on, Big Sal? Shalom to my sister. How you doing? I'm in the house. I'm here. Good to be
brother
back.
Wolf going on?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good to hear you.
Hey.
It's good to hear you.
You too. Okay, I'm back, Sal.
Yeah, what's the latest going on with you, though? Anything happening? What's going on?
Oh yeah. I'm also going to be starting the new season of Bible Fire Radio probably next week. So look out for that. We're doing a lot of Facebook Live broadcasts. We're doing that. And look out for that debate that's coming up. I think it's this month, October 27th. Shutdown Crew, we're going to do it again. We coming on. Come check out the debate. It's going to be fire. And y'all know how it is. That's it.
We appreciate you, Ahwar, no doubt. My next home panelist, she is back once again, too. This is Mayanah. Welcome to the show.
Hey, shalom, Sal. Shalom, everyone. How's everybody doing?
We good. How you doing, sis?
Mayanah, what's going on?
You already know. Hallelujah. Yo, Ahwar, I miss you. Good talking to you again. I only get to hear you on the waves.
You too, sis. You too.
That's right. Anything you want to put out there, Mayanah? Anything that you want to let the fans know or the people know? That.
Well, I don't know. As you may have noticed on social media, we have been promoting that in addition to the relationship challenge. Emunah and I will be locking down Monday nights on Debate Talk for You with a new show called Under the Palm, which will follow this show every other Monday. We're not on this Monday. And it's an all-female panel. We're going to, of course, be inviting the brothers in to call in to contribute, to have a conversation with us. But we have a panel of elder women, experts, and the like. And so experts in various fields, be it history, biblical history, theology, all kinds of things, social work. And so it's going to be a very textured, very rich, very well-rounded conversation. And we want to continue to invite the brothers to to come in and have a conversation. In addition to that, because my time is so fractured, and Emunah will not let me break a promise to the people. So instead of the book that I promised you earlier this year, she's been making sure that I at least release articles. So there has been one already published. There's one that went up today, right? Emunah one's available today, and another one will be available next week. So there's an entire series addressing, for my part, specifically jealousy as it's understood in polygyny. So that's pretty much what I have going on right now.
All right. So look out for Under the Palm. That's going to be actually next Monday. The first female all Hebrew segment. You know what I'm saying? On Debate Talk Radio. So look out for that. I'm looking forward to it myself. So make sure y'all tune in, making history. All right. So let's go to my special guest. Of course, we love having special guests on the panel. Let's go to my first special guest. This is Huldah. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, what's
Wonderful.
going on? How you doing?
Hi, hello. Thank you, Sal. Thank you, Emunah. Thank you, Mayanah, for having me. Thank you to all the other panelists. I'm super excited to be back here and having this discussion with you all.
Welcome, sister. Welcome back.
Indeed.
Yeah, we appreciate you. And our last special guest is Malaka. Welcome to the show.
Hi, shalom, everyone. I'm so happy to be back as well. I enjoy listening when I am not visiting with you in person. This is awesome. I'm excited to have this conversation. This is my thing.
Welcome, Sister Malaka.
Right. Yeah. So let's get the show started, everybody. That's what I actually, if you have any background noise, just mute your phones, just to avoid any background noises. But in the meantime, Emunah, take it away. Get us
Can I say one more thing before we start, Emunah?
Okay.
Just to let the audience know, our special guests, Huldah and Malaka, are permanent panelists on Under the Palm that is beginning next month. So you can look forward to hearing much more from them in the future and all of their various expertise and contributions.
Thank you for that. Cross promotion. It's all good. And let me get one more in before we get started. Y'all know Emunah's been off the air for a minute, so if I'm a little turned up tonight, please bear with me. So all praise be to the Most High, the Holy One of creation, giving thanks for this opportunity to have another conversation about, and shout out to all other people. Before I do that, shout out to all of the people who've been supporting Debate Talk for You, who's been supporting TRC, who gives thumbs down and thumbs up, feedback, and all the hate mail. Thank you to everybody because you help us to be better at what we do. You understand? So you're also welcome to press 1 at any time as long as you're respectful, and we will hear your thoughts on the matter. So today we're going to talk about single motherhood. Is the woman to blame? And I'll start off with this. I was doing a little research this Shabbat, and I was going to start off with that. But then I saw something that was rather disturbing. I think it was yesterday or day before yesterday. And it was so disturbing that I didn't know what to say. Some social media things you see, and you're like, boy, you lose your words. You don't even know if you want to comment. You might want to scroll on by and look at daisies or something to, bring your attitude up a little bit more. So that's what I did. I was like, man, that's just so wild. But I started to think about the 30 seconds of the tape that I actually saw, which was out of, my foreparents, slave port, Jamaica, it was just really shameful. The woman was half naked. She was beating her daughter with a cutlass, as some may know as a machete. And she's enraged. She's angered. The girl is unruly. And I'm thinking to myself, where's her father? Where's her father? And so a lot of times here as well as abroad, when we see children unruly, when we see children out of pocket, when we see children acting up in the school, oftentimes, more often than not, they're going to say, your mother didn't teach you any manners. Or that you, as the president said recently, son of a bee. And so a lot of the onus of whether or not the children turn out well or not seems to fall on the mother. And tonight we're going to go into whether or not that's accurate. Should that be the case? Do we think it's the case? Do you totally disagree with me? Or is it really her fault? Did she get herself pregnant? Did she, go to the sperm bank? Like, all of the reasons and ways in which the woman can become a single mother, because some of them, and then we're also going to look at Torah, of course. We're going to look at Torah and see single motherhood in Torah and see whether or not we can liken what we're seeing in today's time as single motherhood. It's single motherhood-ish, but not really, if the father is alive. And so all of these things are kind of what we're going to hopefully unpack today with the beautiful panel that we have here. And without further ado, I'm going to jump into the little studies that I had a little later, but I kind of want to hear what you guys said. I missed you. I missed you guys, you know what I mean? And I've listened to myself talk for the last 4 months, so I want to hear what you have to say. So we're going to go ahead and start off with Brother Ahwar. We haven't heard you in a minute. And is it her fault? Is it the woman's fault? Single motherhood, opening thoughts. Brother Ahwar.
Oh, okay. You know me. My concept is if you get lost in a forest, you always backtrack to where you came from, find your way back. So that's going to take me to the Bible. So let's, according to my understanding, let's look at the real person that I feel is at fault for single parenting, and I'm going to put it on Adam. And I'm going to read this. This is Genesis 2, verse 16. It says, "And the Lord power commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest eat freely eat. But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest it, eat thereof, thou shalt surely die." So then it says this, when we go to the 2nd Ezra in the King James Apocrypha, 7 verse 38, it says, "O thou Adam, what hast thou done? For though it was thou that sinned, thou art not fallen alone, but we all that come of thee." So what Adam did had a backlash of the offspring that came out of Adam, which is us, which are the children of Israel. So how we prove that when we go here to Deuteronomy, here it is, Deuteronomy 28, verse 54. "So that man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil toward his brother and toward his wife of his bosom and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave." So in my understanding, it falls on Adam. Why? Because Adam was the first one given commandment, and then he was to teach Eve, and then they became that body. So Adam was given the commandment. That's why when this went down, the Most High said, "No, what have you done, Adam? Because I gave the commandment to you." So what Adam did, it affected all of us. It affected our households. It affected the sisters. It affected the children. So that's what I put on that, and I'm going to leave it and pass the mic with that.
What I hear you saying, Brother Ahwar, is the man's fault. Is that what I'm hearing, Brother Ahwar? Can I get an affirmative or a negative?
Yes.
Okay, now, but Brother Ahwar, boom. What's up with the whole crackly thing and the noise anyway? But Ahwar just dropped some bombs. So let's go to the sister right now and hear what they say. Is home panel, Sister Mayanah Johnson. What are your thoughts? Is it the woman's fault? Single motherhood?
I think that when we're talking about children here, and the way children come into existence is through the actions of both the male and the female. So for me, I would hesitate to put it on just one person. I would agree with Ahwar in that there's some culpability in going back to Genesis and seeing how the first couple handled their business. But we see that since Adam and since Kava, we have responsible parents that come from that. Abraham, we have a slew of generations of parents who did not abandon their children, even if there was some questionable parenting here and there, but they stayed together to do it. So I think that some of the things that we are seeing now have to do with decisions we are making now, not what we have inherited. Again, I concede that there definitely has some Genesis in Genesis too, but what we're seeing now, that we have to give culpability in the present and say decisions that we are making now are creating single-parent households, and women are making rash decisions, uninformed decisions, decisions that are based on how they or some other need, rather than thinking about family planning. Sometimes women are mating with men based on a physical or emotional need, and they're not planning for families, and that's a problem. We're getting single-parent households from parents who aren't planning to become parents, and that is my opening thought on the matter.
So what I'm hearing you say, Sister Mayanah, and like I told you guys, please bear with me, is it the D challenge that's going around on social media that's created?
Yeah, it is the D and the P challenge that is going on social media.
I knew that's what you was getting at. You was just trying to be scholarly with me. It's the D and the P challenge, all of the things that the people will do for sexual gratification. Correct. That's creating all of these single-parent households. That's something to think about.
Yep.
I would your mouth, but I'm just saying that's what it sounded like you were saying to me.
Well, I want to confirm that for sure that there are those contributing factors. People are not getting together and creating children on purpose. We used to plan families. We had our children on purpose, and now children have become basically the side effect of pursuing other things. But people are engaging in sex for the pleasure of sex and not for the product of sex. And so children become the consequence instead of the purpose. And so if you didn't engage in the activity with the purpose of becoming a parent, then the onus or the obligation that one would have is absent. It has to materialize after the fact instead of before the fact. And I think that when we have that kind of mentality, when we have the put in, we'll get to it when we get there. That's not we're not prepared. There's a lot of unpreparedness. There's a lot of going into a situation with absolutely the wrong motives, and so there's no way we're going to have the right outcomes.
Interesting, because I heard people saying they'll slap their mama, they'll rob a bank, they burn down a building. They resurrect themselves. So these are the thoughts, as you're saying, that are leading the conversation. And so, obviously, if you saw her in the club, with one too many drinks on a dark night, and in the morning time, that's your baby mama, I could see how problems might arise. Of course, no Hebrews are doing that. Of course not. But with that said, thank you for that, Sister Mayanah. Opening thoughts from Sister Huldah. Welcome back to the panel. Your opening thoughts on the conversation. The mic is yours.
Wow. Both sides gave such good perspective on and their reasons for why they chose either both or male. I was sitting here thinking, and I'm like, okay, from a scriptural standpoint, obviously it's a both. But then looking at the history and how it goes, I'm inclined to agree with Ma'ak that the male has to also be held almost double responsible if we're going back to Bereshit or Genesis, because after everything, it came right back to there. But what did you do? And so often when situations arise, when it comes to single parenthood, everybody goes, well, what did the woman do? Like, she's the person that's supposed to control the male and his sex drive and herself, and also be responsible for handling the quote-unquote consequence, as Sister Mayanah said, that comes from the engagement in lustful behavior. And also, I don't know if it was brought up extensively, but single parenthood does not always happen just through lust. Nowadays, within our community, it happens through a bunch of different factors, where you have couples who did go into it in marriage and other reasons, and because of imbalance in compatibility or other reasons that tore families apart, you have women who are also single. So while I'm inclined to equally distribute the weight of single motherhood, I'm going to side with the Most High and say the man has, in a real sense, the ultimate decision over that. And especially with the single motherhood that we see nowadays, it's very lopsided. Because obviously, the men could be considered single fathers as well, but the reason why we look at these mothers as single mothers is because we see them doing it mostly by themselves. We don't see partnership in relationships where in a situation where the relationships are fractured. So I'm going to go with a little bit of both, and I'm excited to see how this evolves as we kind of unravel this very intricately woven mess that we have here in this situation.
Indeed. Thank you for that. That was the voice of Sister Huldah. Welcome once again to the conversation. We're going to go to Sister Malaka at this time. Opening thoughts on single motherhood. Is the woman to blame? The mic is yours.
Well, it's a layered question, you know, and I'm one who tends to be a little hard on my sisters just because, you know, I know we can do better. And so I will give that tough love talk in a minute. But I wanted to just kind of throw out some societal factors real quick. And in doing that, I am not in any way removing any personal responsibility for where we find ourselves at right now. Because no matter how we got lost, once we realize we're lost, it's time for us to do something about it. So I'm not removing personal responsibility from the sisters, but I just want to throw out some things that are societal factors. A third of our men between the ages of 20 and 29 are incarcerated right now. There is this little thing called the depletion effect that is happening with our men right now. And the depletion effect is basically saying that, you know, our men's economic achievements or economic opportunities are decreasing. And as their economic opportunities decrease, their desire to marry or to create a permanent home decreases with that, as does their confidence in the fact that they could provide or could be present in the home. And then a third thing I want to throw out there is that there's a lot of gender issues going on in the Black community, and I believe at the root of the gender issues could be mental instability and some psychosis. So just speaking on a societal level, we're operating from some extreme deficits that create like a perfect storm for us to be at 72%, or I think maybe it's a little less now. I want to say it's 69% of our children are being born out of wedlock in the Black community. But I think these, you know, the three factors that they definitely play a part. And we can trace those things back to, you know, systemic racism, and then we can trace that back to, you know, if you believe that we are in the place that we are in captivity because of the curses, and then we can trace that back to the disobedience of our ancestors, and we can trace that back to Adam. So I'm kind of like, you know, where we're at right now is that we're crazy. We're kind of crazy right now, and so we need to look at that. And so if I were to say who do I think is at fault or who is to blame, I would say we're in the perfect storm where all these things have come together to create a situation. And, of course, I think the root is Adam, but I think the ultimate responsibility now is the men and women who are listening to us right now. It's us, you know, the people around us. So for the woman who's in the single motherhood situation, if she got into it from poor decisions, then she has to accept responsibility. I'm not saying it's all her fault, that she's totally to a gentleman who has created babies and walked away from them. I'm saying it's his responsibility now to look at himself. So that's my opening thought.
All right now, Sister Malaka has given her opening thoughts on the conversation, and now we into it now. We into the conversation now. Because everyone has brought up some very interesting points. We have single motherhood, where the word is not, as it says in the Torah, single motherhood, but it's there. The concept is there. The institution is there. And then how things have morphed over time. And as Sister Malaka said, the mess that we find ourselves in. And so Brother Ahwar, again, he went to the forest. Brother Ahwar, I was like, no, he didn't take us to the forest again. But the truth of the matter is that, you know, the Torah speaks about the fatherless and the widow. The first instance where it comes up is in Exodus 22. And I'll read it shortly because it's going to put the onus on, well, let's read it. It says Exodus 22 says, where am I here? If you afflict them, no, let me back up. You shall not afflict any widow or fatherless. If you will afflict them in any wise, and they cry on at all unto me, I will surely hear their cry, and my wrath shall wax hot, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. So because it doesn't say it in the English language that, widow wives and fatherless children, that's single parenthood. You see, if you change the way you look at things, the way you look at things to begin to change. People are like, show me single parenthood in the Torah, sis. But when we see a lot of widows in the Torah, or the fatherless or the orphan, that is speaking about a specific type of single motherhood that's going on the premise that they were actually in a covenant relationship and this man died. And now the family does not have the covering. They don't have the resources that he would bring on. And now these people become the responsibility of the community, right? So this concept is in Torah. It has changed because, well, a lot of times people are not getting married and people are having babies outside of, quote, wedlock. But the reality of what they were exposed to, the vulnerability of this segment of society, the Torah lays it out, and today we can see it. But instead of looking at the male who, in this instance, is not there, whether or not he's an absentee male, whether or not he's in jail, whether or not he's on the other side of the tracks, everything that we can name, the reality is he's not there. But the Creator is saying in Exodus, and somebody could, help me if I'm wrong, I'm going to go to Brother Ahwar. He's saying in Exodus, it's your fault. The Most High said, I'm going to turn, if you're not doing your job as what I put you to protect and to provide for the vulnerable in the community, if you're not doing your job and they cry to me, I'm going to make yours the same way that they are. And that's the judgment. So a lot of the times when we see the women carrying the weight, we say, well, it's actually her fault. She's silly. She shouldn't have X, Y, and Z. And I was saying to Sister Mayanah, like, wow, how much is it that what the male does affects the entire family? And just because he's not there does not mean that he's not the one who necessarily got, unless he was, roofied or date raped or something, that got the ball rolling to say, listen, I'm going to plant seed here. You understand what I'm saying? So I just wanted to put that in there. There's more as we go on looking at the translation for fatherless and the translation for widow in the scripture, because I just thought it was mind-blowing the way the widow in the scripture, she just, like, basically, it's like she's in this state of bereavement, she's in this state of despair. And it's like, wow. And the Most High is like, you can't, but when we look at single mothers in today's terms, there's a compassion that has been lost. There's a connection that we're disconnected from. And the question is, are we afflicting the widow or the widowish individual and the fatherless? Are we guilty? Some people say we can't do laws in captivity, but this is something that you can do. How do you treat that person? How do you treat that family? So with that, I'm going to go to Brother Ahwar. What are your thoughts on Exodus 22, brother? The mic is yours.
You're talking about the widows and stuff like that?
Yes. I'll ask you this. Do you see a connection between the widow and the fatherless and single motherhood today?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of, I'll say, to me, let me see how I can say it. What kind of category you put it? Like the widows, that category, that's something that can't be controlled. Like, that's a situation that happened. Like, men go to war, or men pass away, and they got to struggle to take care of the family. That's one aspect. Then, something else where if you're talking about a discord between the wife and the husband and they split, I think those are two different, different entities to deal with. So the widow thing, what are you asking about the widow part? Actually,
my question is basically because, like you're saying, it may play out in two different ways of how it comes about, but the effects are essentially the same. If the father is not, or the man or the husband is not in the household, and she is single, and this is what the widow does, she's single, raising the child, or doing, both parties' jobs by herself, then wouldn't that have some aspects of widowhood?
Yeah, that is. Yeah, it's similar. That part of those are two, to me, they're both similar in a situation like the other situation I said, where they split due to some kind of disagreement or, the same struggles are similar, I agree with, yeah. A widow compared to a woman that had a split with her husband or whatever, or divorce, and she's struggling. I think it's the same struggle as far as her being alone and raising it, doing it by herself. I think it's the same struggles, but, I don't know.
Okay.
I hope I said that right.
No, it's okay. No, because again, we have people who are very technical and be like, sister, show me single motherhood in the Torah. That don't exist. So we're looking at the principle of the issue and seeing whether or not, as you said, are there any similarities, and what is the Creator speaking about, and what makes this type of individual or this type of family vulnerable. And what can we do about, ultimately, when we come back around, what can we do about this today? Because, I'm all about solutions. After we've spoke about the issue, what can we actually do? Can it bring us a better awareness of our brothers and sisters who are in this situation, and how can we help as a people? So with that, Sister Mayanah, your thoughts on the comments and questions and concerns that were just raised, and as well as Exodus 22. The mic is yours.
I think what we've heard so far is amazing, very much on point. I was expecting for it to go into this area of widowhood, particularly when Huldah first introduced the fact that there's this kind of unintentional single motherhood, that these other things come into play where women become widows or they become without husbands unintentionally. And that does happen. We have other ways. We have that our men are not only being incarcerated, as Malaka pointed out, but the men are also being assassinated, for lack of a more accurate term. They're being assassinated in the streets. So these numbers are depleting. The men are being taken from the home in ways other than the expected or anticipated. There's just a split through divorce or separation or some other kind of discontent or malcontent in the family. But where this thing is possible, where these things are happening, where families are being split because there is a lack of oneness, an absence of achad, and the people have separated and gone about their ways, as you pointed out, the effect is the same. The widowhood and the single mother or the single parenthood shares the same features in that, for example, they become dependent on the community when the original provider is now absent in the home. I think that another thing that we haven't said yet, and we probably, or someone else would have brought it out later, is that a difference in the dynamics between our historical reality and our contemporary reality is that in the past, and when we were in our appropriate cultural state, women didn't, for the most part, initiate relationships. And so the onus would not have been on her, because there was an expectation that the families that were negotiating had ironed out those things, and that the man had also, we see that there's an onus on the man that once the marriage has taken place, that for a full year neither work nor war is to interrupt him creating a bond with that wife. I believe, depending upon the version, it says to make her happy for a full year. So there is this understanding that there's an onus on the man, and that is because the woman is the one that is moving, but it's the men that are negotiating. And she's not going out and making choices. But now, women are very much embracing this idea of they're grown, and they're not talking to their elders, they're not consulting with their families, and they are doing the D and the P challenge, and they're saying, these are the things that these are the ways in which I will compromise to obtain the D. And in the conversation that we had with other sisters previously, we were talking about the fact that women originally didn't have that kind of she didn't have that problem, for lack of a better word. She didn't have to go out and entice anyone. She was practically, and for the most part, guaranteed a mate. There was no reason to go out and lure one, no reason to go out and compete for one. And she didn't have that particular challenge. Instead, she had challenges in other spaces. So I think where I'm saying that there is a shared culpability, it is not because Torah is wrong or because the culture is wrong. It's because we have deviated from the culture and deviated from those protective spaces. They would have said this is 100% or more so, or as Sister Huldah said, doubly so on the man, because doubly so the male and the men would have been making decisions more unilaterally than we find them being made now. And until women are prepared to say, we're going to depend on the wisdom of our elders, we're going to listen, and we're going to accept these types of protection, and we're not going to try to do everything on our own, and we're not going to be competitive in this very negative, very injurious way, then those protective measures that were in place that allows for the culpability to rest more so on the man won't be as effective. They simply will not. And so I feel that it's true, or I would, from my research and what the records bear out, is that it's true that we're finding that the community would have shouldered or tried to absorb some of the or try to fill the vacancy that the male has left behind. And and I'll end on this point. To that end, to the end where the community would step in for the widow, the orphan, and this is like you said, this is single parenthood. We find that someone on the panel said there's a lack of compassion, there's an absence of compassion. We don't see that anymore. That this element of compassion is like the woman is on welfare. She's accepting, she's not producing the way she should. That's a criticism that's being put on the woman when she needs help from someone. And then, but we see this. It's not cold welfare. We're not using that word in the scriptures. But for certain, that system is set up where we don't leave this vulnerable population vulnerable. The community steps in, absorbs them to the best of their ability, and tries to protect the family from complete disrepair once the main provider has been removed for any number of reasons. Again, just to recap those reasons, it could be incarceration, untimely death, the fact that they're engaged in high-risk activities, this conversation about I'm sorry, I know I keep saying it's the last thing, but Malaka brought out the fact that there is education deficits and there are children being born out of wedlock. That goes back to the mentality that we have adopted. We have adopted this kind of de-emphasis on education. We don't value that. It's always my street smarts is more valuable than your education. So unless street smarts can be marketed and it has some kind of marketing value where it generates an income, it isn't more valuable than, or at least not on the trading floor, than education. But we have this habit of saying you if you speak well or if you have read too many books, then you somehow aren't authentically melanated, that you have disregarded the community by being educated. We have ketubalist relationships where people are just throwing themselves together, and they de-emphasize the purpose of or the point of legitimate unions, and then we say, well, we have all of these children born out of wedlock. We don't respect wedlock. There's going to be that's not going to change. Those numbers will never change. We will always have statistics that say that there are single mothers because they aren't married. It doesn't mean that they don't have men in their homes or men in their beds. It means they don't have a man on paper. And so these statistics can very often be skewed. They can very often be misinterpreted. These women are not alone. They're just not legitimate. And with that, I'll yield the mic.
Sister Mayanah done went into the third round on her, sister. Okay. Like you just threw it in there before the buzzer went off. It's all good. We're going to go to Sister Huldah because we're going to come back and speak about statistics that we often quote and people quote and they look at. And, the status quo. I have 4 children, and I experience it every time I go out the door. But we're going to talk about that. I usually don't talk about some stuff, but I'm going to talk about some stuff today because there are certain things that society assumes, especially when they see a melanated sister with children. But I'm going to go to Sister Huldah for the second round, Sister Huldah. Let us not try to confuse you. So the second round, we went into Exodus 22 as well as other scriptures. I didn't go into other scriptures as yet, but are you able to see this similarity between widowhood and single motherhood? Yay or nay? And you could definitely add anything else you would like to add to that portion of the conversation. Sister Huldah, the mic is yours.
So when looking at Exodus, immediately my mind is a condition to jump to a couple other places just to support where I'm going to come from. I know the argument has been made. I've heard it from people online. I have a particular author online who goes in pretty intense on women in general. And I remember one of his arguments, he made the statement that women who are having babies out of wedlock are not considered in the category of a widow. While I understand his premise, obviously he wasn't looking at it through a broader spectrum or lens. So when I heard his comment, it made me actually think of some other instances in Scripture where investigating, it can show you that there were women who were single mothers. For instance, in the case of of children who were considered bastards or mamzer or illegitimate. By illegitimate right, the word actually literally means any way that a child is conceived that is against Torah. Those children made it, which means that if they were conceived by, you can say, fornication, if they were conceived outside of wedlock, those children actually made it alive, which means that those mothers were actually still alive to carry those children to term. So there is evidence in Torah of women who had children who did not have a male caring for them. So I just wanted to point that out first. But what struck me, I think, the most is the issue is always arguing whether or not the concept exists and not dealing with what the effects are of that particular indiscretion or that breaking of Torah. The reality is whether or not we agree with the way that these families have been fractured or broken, they do in fact exist now. And the question has to be, what do we then do about it? They are here. We are here. Whether it's due to the curses, whether it's completely unlawful, we're not in our land. So there is an overabundance. Just hearing the statistics, it blew me. Over 60-something% of children are born, or children who are born are raised by single mothers. Is just insane. So the issue exists. And so to continually debate on whether or not it exists, whether it exists in Torah or not, it forces us to turn a blind eye to a grievous wound within our community. The problem is there. You have boys and girls being raised without fathers. You have them being raised with single mothers. I don't necessarily agree that a woman, likewise, and on the other side, neither can a man, raise a child by doing both roles. So anytime a child is raised by any singular parent, there's an extreme lack in whatever the other parent would have to offer, because a mother cannot be a father and a mother because she is not equipped to do both. She can do the best of her ability to be the best mother that she can be, but being raised by a single mother, I can tell you that nothing replaces the presence of having a father in your home. We're just kind of wired differently. We do the best we can. And so I probably can't get into going and saying this is right here is a single mother in Scripture, but as I presented, there's other places in Scripture where you see children on the scene who are born of unions that make them, in that case of, I believe it's Exodus, Deuteronomy 23:2, where you have a child to the 10th generation not being able to enter the congregation. So it has to do with the fact that these consequences of our actions carry out further down the line to our children. It just doesn't affect the generation that's before us. And so dealing with this situation, it's a lot deeper than just pointing out whether or not it's whose fault it is, but what do we now do about the situation, because it is right in front of us.
All right, thank you for that. That was the voice of Sister Huldah. As you said, we will always round it around. It's like building a beautiful cake. We have to put the layers in and put it all together. And so that's what we do with the rounds. We go around and around and around as we begin to build this conversation. And the importance of finding in Torah, as we're Hebraically, biblically based people, is to understand that there's nothing new under the sun, that this problem existed. The thought of the fatherless is not a new concept. There are people who will have you to believe that, the mass incarceration is the problem, and this is why we got single fatherhood. No. That, this is the problem, this is why it has always been here for one reason or another. Like Brother Ahwar brought up, whether it be war, whether it be whatever it is, the case is, there have been women, like, again, the two women who appeared before Shlomo, they didn't come with their mates. They came arguing over a baby. Where did they get the baby from? You understand what I'm saying? But they didn't come like, oh, yeah, Shlomo, we married. Why were they laying up? Anyway, I'm not going to deviate. My point is that this has always been here, so we could put that to rest for those who may be out there saying this doesn't exist in Torah. It actually, we have situations of that. As Sister Huldah said, and I'm going to come to Sister Malaka, about what do we do with it now, the importance, in my estimation, of looking at the onus is because if we put the onus in the wrong place, then the problem cannot or will not be resolved effectively. You can't make a man be a father, but you can create the environment where when you're not doing anything for the D, and if you're not doing anything for the D, certain parts of single motherhood will not exist. You know what I mean? The one night, Netflix and chill is not going to exist. And so even if the woman becomes married, now you're going to have other parameters. You're going to have other safeguards. You're going to have other insurances and things of that nature and support systems that even if, most I forbid, something happens, she's not on GoFundMe like, yo, help me to pay tomorrow's rent. So there's a whole lot of things that come with the things that our foreparents were doing and the things that we're doing, and I think it's Sister Mayanah who brought it up, in excess. There's negligence on the behalf of the male and the female. And so, as this conversation unfolds, we'll look at what can she do and what can he do. He's going to do, essentially, what you allow him to do. So if we're telling him, yes, this is okay, yes, you can scribble it on the notepad, on the Chick-fil-A receipt, and then I'm your Isha. And then he says, you know what, I don't like you no more, you really have to get out. And now you're a single mother, and now you're on Facebook with a GoFundMe, and everybody's looking at, well, where did you get the third baby from? You understand what I'm saying? And so even though it is coming back to the community, because that's how Torah set it up, some of these things are negligence. Some of these things are men and women who refuse to take counsel, refuse to hear, and then want others to, when we don't chip in or when we don't help, oh, you're a hater and you're not righteous and you're not lawful. So I agree, it does exist today. If we're going to really get to a solution, we bear it out and we go through all of the spaces and clear out all of those spaces that could be creating unnecessary things, not situations that is unavoidable, but some of this stuff, some of this stuff is unavoidable. But I'm going to go ahead to Sister Malaka. The mic is yours. Your thought on the second round, Sister Malaka.
Okay. I'm looking at Exodus 22, thinking about, any likenesses that I see between the widow and today's single mom. And, of course, I know some single moms that are single moms because they were widowed. And I know some single moms that are single moms because their husbands have been incarcerated. And I know some single moms who are single moms because they went into a marriage wholeheartedly believing that this was going to be forever, and the marriage broke down and they were left alone with the children. So, of course, there are various reasons why women become single mothers. And then I like what Sister Mayanah said about how, many women statistically would be called a single mother, but it's not that there's no man in her life or in her home or in her bed. It's that she hasn't been legitimized. And so as I was thinking about that comment and looking at Exodus 22, what really stood out to me was the scripture about the maiden being taken by a man and then not being married to the man not marrying her. You know, he lies with her, then he doesn't marry her. And so then there's a consequence that he has that is enforced by her family and by the community. You know, he's required to either marry her or pay a certain bride price, and her family, you know, is to be compensated for what he's done to her. And so that was a time for us when we had a community that held us accountable for our behavior and for our actions. And so you couldn't just do whatever you wanted to do and think that, you know, mom and dad was going to be okay with that, or grandmother was going to be okay with that, or you know, the teacher, the priest, or the minister, or whoever it was that was spiritually looking to your family for, you know, your family was spiritually looking to for guidance. And so I think that a breakdown in our community is directly connected to the type of single motherhood that we're seeing. So I do think there is some compassion that we can have for single mothers, because some single mothers are in this position because of circumstances, situations that have occurred in their life, but then some single mothers are in that situation because of a lack of community in their life, a lack of being grounded in family and of getting their emotional needs met. And I feel a lot of compassion for these young women. And I look at, you know, I mean, if you think even about Tamar, who lay with Judah to get pregnant, I mean, isn't she a single mother at that point? You know, she gets pregnant. And so she was doing what she felt was right for her future, for her her legacy, or her ability to be cared for later, or to do what she felt was you know, just the right thing for her life. And I meet a lot of young women who tell me they just wanted somebody to love them, that they wanted a baby because they wanted someone to love them. They wanted someone to be there for them, someone to meet, you know, emotional needs that they weren't having met through family and through community. So I think that where I see the likeness between the widow of the single mother in Torah and the single mother today is the need, the same need for compassion exists. Although the reason that they're in the situation may be completely different, there is a certain level of compassion that's necessary. And then, you know, of course, I believe there's a certain measure of truth that has to be told to people who are in situations that they created themselves, and an accountability that you put into that person's life when you begin to walk with them in order to get them to a place of being able to recognize their situation. You know, in Exodus 22, when it talks about the maiden being the man laying down with the maiden, it's kind of like her culpability is not real present. It's on him. You know, the onus is on him. He laid with her. And I think that there is still some truth to that. There are men who prey upon the emotional needs of women who are not developed emotionally, you know, and then they leave her after they've used her. And do I think that's every situation? No, I'm not just calling out all men, but I have personally been witness to many situations that are like that. So I guess what I'm saying is that the likeness that I see is the need to not further afflict them, but to have compassion towards them.
All right. Thank you for that. That was the second round. That was the voice of Sister Malaka. We're going to check on Brother Sal because he's rather quiet. We're going to check on Brother Sal, see if we have anybody in the audience who has pressed 1. If you have any questions or comments or anything that you would like to add to the conversation, feel free to do so at this time. The topic of the conversation is single motherhood, who's to blame? And often, even if we say it verbally or non-verbally, we're always looking for some to pin the tail on the proverbial donkey. We always looking to point the finger and say, well, whose responsibility is this? And so we've heard from the panel that collectively that it's both parties' responsibility. Some panelists say, as well as Torah leans heavily towards the male's responsibility, because as I said jokingly earlier, and you know, for those who can't take my jokes, you know, may the Most High be with you. But unless the man is roofied, date, rape, drugged, or something, he ultimately is in charge as to whether or not he's going to plant seed. She can seduce, she can allure, she could be the deep ditch or the narrow well like Solomon talks about. But ultimately, he has to do the deed. And so unless she, you know, does some other stuff and steals his sperm and some crazy stuff like that. So my point of the matter is, this is why if you're going to be the head, then you can't just be the head when it's convenient. And so to say that, you know, you're just as culpable, but I said at the same time she's not the head, that's kind of disingenuous in my estimation. But we'll get more on that later as we continue this conversation. And I like what Sister Malaka brought out, because there are different types, and other panelists as well, there are different types or different reasons why people end up in the same space. And to treat the person who's been on Maury 5 times as the individual who went through all the right ways in which to become married and ends up a widow, or a single mother, it's totally different. And so for us to class it all together and group it all together, it's not really doing our due diligence, and it's not showing that compassion and that the Torah asks for. So at this point, let's check on Brother Sal. Brother Sal, are you there?
All right, the topic is single motherhood or women to blame. I see a lot of people on the phone lines checking out the show. I appreciate everybody that's tuning in via phone and via Skype. I'll dial that number 319-527-6239. And it seems like somebody did a lot of heavy promotion, because it seems like the switchboard is full. It's up to capacity, so it's like nobody else can call in at this time. And, you know, it's filled up. So, again, we appreciate the people out there that's been tuning in. But, of course, you can tune in on social media as well. Just click on the link to tune in on social media. But we're going to go to the phone lines now and hear what everybody has to say. And if you're new to the show, all that we ask that when you call in, you got to keep it clean, keep it professional. Believe it or not, we have people listening with the kids and even the elderly. All right, so let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to the first person. Let's go to 443-815. You're live on air.
Yeah. Hey, Sal, Showtime. This is Brother Mercy.
What's happening, brother?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm going to take a different approach than what the ladies have said. I'm going to say I see a difference in the single motherhood today, and I think it's wrong to call these single mothers widows or even make that type of correlation, because first of all, widow means at one point you was married and you entered in some type of covenant and you had some type of legal agreement. So you kind of incorporated the elders in your family for your relationship. So your mentality is totally different than somebody out there that's just making babies. I think it's wrong to attach that, because a widow to me means someone who's been married, their husband died, they had a support system in place, and they lost it. So we're trying to replace what they lost, versus a single mother who never had that support system, or we even know they was even looking for it, or even desired it, and you know, it's not like we replace something they had before, but that's not to detract from what's going on, and I'm not trying to at all say that. I mean, it just shows you the way people were back in those days and the way people are today. I think we've lost our moral compass today. I think back then they had a moral compass. That's why you don't see the single mother like you see today back then, because they had a moral compass. The world had a more moral compass in the sense that, families were, they didn't allow certain things to happen. Now, the single mother exists, yeah, you brought the case of Tamar. But what did Tamar do? She played the harlot. So there's your example. Women a lot of times fell on a few categories. Either you was a harlot, or either you was a widow, or one of those categories. It was either really widow or harlot, really, or that's it. That's the only way you can be a single mother. You're a widow or you're a harlot, one of the two. So we got to kind of own up to what Torah says. Torah don't give the single mother category. It says either you a harlot or you whatever. But I don't want to overemphasize the blame on the women, because the men were not tolerated to do the things they did today either. See, men were not allowed to do what they do now. So, so I want to keep that in place too. And then men really are not allowed to do what they do, because, that's why men are in jail. Why? For not paying child support. Here we go again. So it's still there. So the men are still held accountable. They still held accountable, and that's why they're in jail, because they're not paying child support. I know a lot of people in jail for not paying child support. So there you go again. There's the problem. And I'm not here to blame the women. I'm just trying to say Torah does not support what we do today. And so what I'm trying to say is that the men are not doing what they're supposed to do. That's why they're in jail. And a lot of times you got a lot of men in jail just for not paying child support. You got a lot of men in jail for that. And so they're not doing what they're supposed to do. And the women, a lot of times, not doing what they're supposed to do. But we just got a big old mess going on right now. And I think it's wrong for us to point the finger at each other. But to me, I believe you want to bring Torah into this discussion, I think Torah makes the single mother fall into two categories, the harlot or the widow. And that's it. That's all I have to say.
Brother Mercy. How you been, Brother Mercy?
Well, I've been great.
Welcome back to the conversation, brother. I'm not sure we didn't. It's good to hear your voice as always. We didn't necessarily say that the widow is the single mother of today. The reality is, when you see single mother in that verse, it proceeds or followed by fatherless child. So we're looking at ultimately the position that both of these individuals are in. And as you said, there are different reasons as to how you can get in this category, but the end result is the same. Your child has no father, whether it be a male or a female. And so the vulnerability of those people in the Torah, as well as in today's spaces, are what is being likened. Just for clarity, not sure. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is why, and Sister Mayanah brought up the issue of the thought, and we talked about that last season or in the summer, is welfare wicked? Because you have a lot of single mothers who don't have either the support of the male, he's there, or he doesn't have the economic fortitude to be able to support his family, and so she has to appeal to the welfare system of the government. And so you still have the same need to say, I cannot nourish, protect, bring up. I can't do both jobs, and I believe that's what Sister Huldah said. You can't. No matter how much you try, you can't effectively do both jobs. And so we see what I was personally looking at is we see the need for the community in both situations. And the question today is, who is to blame? Because people are saying but not saying it's her. Because a lot of times the man is still around. He's just, a rolling stone. You know what I'm saying? And wherever he lay his hat, that's his home. He Johnny Appleseed. He rolling through the side, the countryside, seeding up women as he go. These are some of the situations where men oopsie, and then they that's my baby mama. That's like my seventh baby mama. You know what I'm saying? So we have to be honest and real about who's really creating, who's allowing this to happen, and who's actually creating the environment for this to happen. You can respond.
And let me put one more thing. Let me add one more caveat in this.
All right, let's
There's a difference still between the widow, because with the widow, they may have a life insurance policy in place. I'm just telling you, some widows got life, and if they got a life insurance policy in place, hey, she got some support. So you can't do that with a single mother. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's a whole different legal parameters we're not even considering. The difference between a widow and a single mother. They're both single mothers, but a widow, if she did a life insurance policy, if she did this, that, and she put things in place, she's going to have some type of support even after her husband's dead.
What if Brother Mercy, and we're going to go to the next caller, but, I'm the scenario lady. What if she ain't never had no life insurance? What if she's the third wife of a polygynous union? You laughing, right? What if she's the third Isha, okay? She's not even on paper now well, okay? She got 5 children. Dude kicks the bucket. What is she? Was she married? Is she really a widow? Is she a single mother? What category? Because a lot of women, all fun and joke aside, fall into this category. They thought they were married. There's nothing for them to get. There's nothing for their children to get. What is she?
See, that's why when you living in America, I'm serious.
Hey, Mercy, I can put your head in the freezer if you want me to. Look at it.
No, but like you living in America. But see, this is the whole problem. You can't be living in America dreaming about living in Israel. You can't do both. Because, you know, in America, you only have one wife. So otherwise, the polygamy thing is illegal. Again. So then we back to square one again. Are you going to obey the laws of the land, or are you going to do your own thing? When you do your own thing, it's not supported. See, this system doesn't support polygamy. That's what I'm trying to explain. So if you're trying to do polygamy, this is not the country you need to get married in. Okay? You need to go somewhere else.
Brother Mercy, before we go to the next caller, just for clarity, you know I like to get some answers. What is she? What do we call her? We call her a widow or a single mother?
Oh, which one? You talking about which scenario?
I'm talking about the third Isha with 5 children, and she married to Raheem. What do we call her? And Raheem
first of all, she's probably not even married, because in this country you're only allowed to have one wife. That's number one. So if she's not married, she's a single mother. You know, she can't be married. I mean, he can't legally have more than one marriage certificate. If not, Raheem goes to jail for they lock you up for polygamy. You know that, right? So, you know, if he's found out, he's going to jail.
All right. Thank you so much for that, brother. Thank you so much. It's always good hearing your voice, Brother Mercy. We're going to go to the next call, and then we're going to come to the panel. Brother Sal, how's it going over there? Do we have any more callers with their hand in the air?
We have a lot more callers standing by. Once again, y'all, that number is 319-527-6239. If you're new to the show, once you call in, simply press number 1, and that'll let me know that you have a question. Again, that number to call in is 319-527-6239. Once you're already on the phone line, simply press number 1. We'll add you in. Let's go to the next person. Let's go to 346-240. You're live in the air.
Shalom, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, stop.
Shalom. This is Maya. I just wanted to real quick. I'm at work, so I can't really be on the phone this long. But I just wanted to say this topic is something I was thinking about actually earlier today, about the polygyny, about the single mothers, and the biggest problem that we have in this country is the fact that we don't want to follow culture. We don't want to follow our original culture. You won't have a single mother. You won't have young men having sex with your daughters if you follow the law, statute, commandments that our ancestors gave us, dealing with how your house is supposed to be ran. We allow our children to just do whatever they want to do. Single mothers today, they are working. Some are working 2 or 3 jobs. They can't be home to watch their children. Their daughters and their sons are doing whatever they want. There's no more structure. There's no more great-grandmoms who was there to watch the children, great-grandpops, because grandmoms and grandpops today are running the streets too, getting high. Where I live at, I see it all the time. So we don't have culture. And without culture, you don't have structure. You don't have nothing. So this is going to be a problem. This is going to continue to be a problem. And as far as polygyny, the brother said something that was correct, that I agree with. If we want to follow polygyny, then we must do it in a place where it is practiced. In this country, you're going to have a lot of people with a lot of different opinions, a lot of women who are not married, who do not want to be a part of that, and there's going to be a lot of problems. Anything that the Most High allow us to have and give us doesn't come with problems. So if problems come out of having a polygynous marriage, then is unclean. So therefore, as the brother said, go back home, go to Africa, and you can practice that and live there and have a beautiful life. Because I know a lot of families that live that life, and they don't go through drama. Children are well behaved. Everything is kosher with their family. But here in America, it's totally different because you're going to have a lot of things that's coming from Americanized-minded people. And I just wanted to say that. I'm going to say shalom to everybody, and I love y'all. Peace, shalom.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you for calling in, Brother Sal. We're going to check on the panelists because I know they must be like, Emunah. So I'm going to come check on the panelists. Definitely, if you're on the lines, we're coming back around for another round. Press 1, and we're going to come back around to hear your calls, your thoughts, your comments, your concern. Thank you for tuning in. This is Debate Talk for You, the Relationship Challenge, Season 3. And we're talking about a very important topic. Making a little light here and there, but the topic is important because the children are our future. The Creator says when you and your children return. So the children need to return with us. There's a lot of people, generations before us, who awoken to being Israelites, and the children don't come with. They're grown in this way, born in this way, speak Hebrew from the womb. And when they're old, they depart. And it says, instruct your children in the way in which they should go so that when they get to that age, they will not depart. So the fact of the matter is there's something amiss, not necessarily that all the time the father is not there, but right about now there's an influx of a lot of single mothers and a lot of broken homes and no answers. And so this is why we are pointing light at them, and the women are struggling. The reason why they're working, because if they don't work, they don't eat. You know what I'm saying? The children don't eat. I saw a conversation about should you put him on child support, should you not put him on child support. You see, and so there's something going on, and if the women do 120% of what they're supposed to do, they still can't fill in for the man. You know, they still can't play his part. And so it's very important for the males in our nation to understand that you are needed. You are absolutely needed. But you are needed in a healthy capacity. You are needed to lead the nation, to provide for the nation, to protect the nation. And when you are not there, the stress goes on the woman. And by extension, it goes on the children. You see? And so we have to be real about what it is that we're doing. Otherwise, I'm going to have to rock with Shaloma and say it's all in vain. If we're doing all of this and the children are looking and saying, you know what, I'm good, then you just wasted your time. You just wasted your time because it's like planting all these seeds and you have nothing for harvest. That's a problem. But, all right, cool. I'm going to come off my soapbox. Let me check on Brother Ahwar. Hope you're not sleeping, Brother Ahwar. Let's hear your thoughts about what you've heard so far, and then we're just going to go down the line. Brother Ahwar, your thoughts.
Yeah, that's why earlier I was going to go. That's why we, a righteous government had to be reestablished, right? And that's why the Lamb, the Most High going to serve the Lamb to establish that righteous setup, because there's things that have to be implemented and enforced in order for things to continue forever righteous. I'll give an example. This is like Matthew 19, right? It says, let me read this. It says, and he answered and said unto them, have ye not read? Well, let me give a scenario. They were talking about divorce, and they asked the Messiah about divorce. And what he did was he pointed to them the big picture. He went back to Genesis before the fall of Adam, what the purpose of marriage was for. So even with Israelites, right, a lot of them don't deal with the New Testament because it's actually harder, because you're commanded not to put your woman away, your wife away. You can't just go and she gets, a lot of brothers have done that. Oh, man, when you're tired and you want another piece of, another woman or whatever, they start finding things to find flaws. And then they cut the woman off or not do, and they've been doing this. See, the Messiah implement that decree, and when he come back, he's going to establish that death law on this. This is going to be a death law, where if you try to put away your wife, you're going to get put to death for that. That's going back to the way it was from the beginning. That's how the Most High had it up in the beginning. Wasn't no divorce. That's going to be dead. And you put that, to me, that's very high wisdom, because then you can really build a future. If I'm scared of dying because I put you away or disrupted our marriage, then we can plan future things. We can really build and establish something. But if I don't care about the marriage and I feel I can do what I want to do and I don't have no restraints, then that's why everything's falling. So I really believe in that. Once that righteous government gets established, all of the garbage is going to stop. And I'll pass the mic.
Thank you for that, Brother Ahwar. As you were speaking, I'm going to come to Sister Mayanah and Sister Huldah and Sister Malaka. We haven't forgot about y'all. Just go ahead and sip a little water, and we'll be right there. As you were saying that, Brother Owell, what came to my mind is what, if you look throughout time, is the issue, is that not to say that laws and judgment should not be in place, but individually there is a problem, because ultimately the law now is going to be inwardly. There's not going to be necessarily somebody outside of you beasting on you, forcing you to do that which is right. You see what I'm saying? And this is where I see a lot of Israelites. I heard somebody, unfortunately, one time, a teacher of a huge congregation say, I'm afraid of the beating. If it wasn't for the beating, that the Creator promises, I wouldn't do certain things. And I'm thinking to myself, wow. You know what I'm saying? If we continue to have that mentality, how much of a nation, that was the mentality that we had before. That's the mentality our forefathers had. I mess up, sin offering, sin offering, sin offering. The Most High is like, come on, I'm sickened with that. So at what point that we as a people are going to say within ourselves, circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart, know that which is right to do within you, and do it. Do you want the child who's like, I didn't wash no dishes, I ain't sweep no floor, I ain't mow no lawn, and as soon as they see you coming, for judgment, now they moving? Or do you want the child inwardly that heard what you have to say and say, you know what, Mommy, Daddy, I did this because I know it's right to do? That's what the Creator is looking for. And if we come back out of this great coma that we have come out of with the same mentality that brought us in there, we will not be staying for long. And I don't hear this speaking on a lot of spaces with a lot of Israelites, like we're missing it. You know what I'm saying? We're kind of missing it. The Most High's like, why am I beating you in vain? You know what I'm saying? The whole body is sick from the head to the foot. Like, am I doing this for no reason? It's not to be over you like a taskmaster. I'm sorry. But thank you for that, Brother Award. But it brought to my mind, like, what are we really thinking about? And why do we need this external force to force us to do that which is right? You know what I'm saying? Or do we just have evil in us continually? These are the things we need to ask ourselves, because we have people on the outside looking like, oh, you guys are proclaiming you have the truth. I heard you have the truth. You have the Torah. You say you have the Testament. You have the Torah. You have the truth. Why are you acting this way? So now we're going to be liable for false advertisement. And then we're going to say, oh, we're waiting. So why are we proclaiming we have the truth? Do you understand what I'm saying, Brother Or? So, as we elevate in this conversation and we elevate in our relationship with the Creator, these are some of the things that as the next generations behind us come, these are some of the things that hopefully we as parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles are cultivating within the minds of the children, how to get us in the space where we're doing what is right to do because it's right to do it. But
I'm one more thing.
All right, Brother Ward, go ahead, and then I'm coming to
I just want to say one thing. But doesn't it seem like the masses of the people are the most rebellious and the most righteous are a remnant?
Correct.
You see what I'm saying? Is that the case? But I just want to put that in.
It's always been the case. Also, it's like a remnant. When you strain something, the most of the dregs and the pieces that don't fit through the sieve are not going. The other day I was straining, I was doing my little cooking thing, and you see just the little fine particles falling through, and all of the clutter and the clump, it stays in the sieve. And so I think when we get back to a lot of just the practical, hands-on application of the life that we was living, we would understand more Torah. When you talk about sieving and you talk about winnowing, you talk about wheat and you're talking about chaff and you're talking about dregs and you're talking about all these things, if we're not putting our hands to the field and we're not in that space, we kind of really don't understand the practicality of what they're actually saying and the process that we have to go to be refined, But thank you for that, Brother. Oh, I'm going to come to Sister Mayanah. Sister Mayanah, thank you, George.
Oh, thank you for that. I had to unmute my phone. So much really great things have been said. I'm sad that I missed a portion of it. But from the callers to the return to the panel, the way the conversation is going, I think that we're really looking at some important things. One of the things that I'm hearing repeatedly, and I think that Malaka first brought out like my favorite word, accountability, this idea of accountability as being skirted a lot, even though like the title of the show is, are the women to blame? The reason we're still asking this question is because we have been avoiding accountability in so many spaces. I want to what is called to mind is something that you, Emunah, has just said was I was reminded of Hosea, the 2nd chapter and the 16th verse, where the Most High is saying there will come a time in the future where you will call me Ishi, you will no longer call me Bali, but Ali, and then in the future we will call the Most High by husband instead of by master, and that for me speaks to the idea of a different type of relationship where the Most High doesn't have to beat it into us, and that we're ushered into the loving relationship, the mutual, the relationship where we're in a chad with the Most High, and He doesn't to continuously come behind us with the rod, and we aren't continuously underfoot and continuously under various curses due to disobedience. The brother that brought out polygyny, again with this, polygyny is not, for some reason, polygyny has become the magic pill everyone wants to pop and say that it is the solution to all things. I'm not sure where this is coming from, but he did make the point of that right now we have elders that are not behaving as elders. I only heard the tail end of Brother Mercy's call, so I'm not able to really comment on the things that he said. But this brother who brought out that the elders are no longer really in their seat, and we find this in Isaiah when Isaiah tells us, he lets us know from 1 to 3 that certain things are going to happen, and the Most High is going to remove the guidance in terms of the mighty man, the man of war, the judge, the prophet, the prudent, the ancient, the elder, the captain of 50, the honorable man, and so on. And so because we don't have that, there's a lot of leaning on not only our own understanding, but on our base desires. And we're moving in a very low vibration. I know we said this several times during the previous season and received a great deal of backlash, but these are the things that are happening. We are still saying that if I can't get immediate consequences, like what's going to happen? We're always on the tip of our tongue challenging the Most High. What's the worst that can happen? And we always, when we talk about it, well, what was the penalty for that? We're always trying to gauge how much we can get away with and to what degree is it safe to disobey or to pursue our own pleasures. And the example of Tamar came out, and I was pleased to hear it. One of the things that is also evident in that account is that when Tamar was being judged, at the end, she's pregnant. She's with ostensibly, or for all intents and purposes, apparently, without a husband or without a father for this child. Tamar instantly is like, I'm not going down alone. And she presents the tokens that prove the paternity of her child. Without the benefit of Maury, she had all the foresight to have all these other tokens to prove the paternity of her child. And in this way, she was not, the one she wasn't with the scarlet letter about to be set on fire for all of her misdeeds. There was a man involved in this, and that man needed to be brought accountable. It wasn't just her. She wasn't going to go down alone. And so we see that Torah has, I agree with everyone who's saying that Torah puts an onus on the man. I agree with it completely, but there is this idea of the woman having some understanding about when to be prepared to say, I'm not going down alone. And having some preparation. She was one of the women who made a decision. I said earlier that women typically did not go out and initiate these kinds of situations, but with Tamar was an active agent in her condition, she also, brought with her some foresight. So what we're talking about to some extent is a lot of willful negligence in terms of, on another page, we're talking about the willful negligence of people in our community, feeling as if we don't have to be accountable, number one, for the fear that we need to possess of the Most High so that we do what we are supposed to do without necessarily having to be beaten into it. It's just the fear of the Most High, and to keep His commandments is the whole duty of man. So we haven't done that. We're not afraid of consequences anymore. So this is leading to a lot of willful negligence in terms of how we conduct ourselves and how we care for our families and for the single parents that come from, as Sister Huldah said, the fracturing of the nuclear family and these other things. We see in Psalms, we see in Job, we see in Exodus 22, as Emunah has been bringing our attention to, that the Most High is saying, if you continue to neglect them, don't think they just stay neglected. If I have to step in, you're not going to like it. It's going to be a problem. They're going to be taken care of. So I think that for the Most High saying that to us in so many different spaces is to incite that fear, to remind us of this fear of blaming and exculpating, because we're discarding blame, which is exculpating. We're exculpating so many responsible parties. In this case, the male, and very often it's the male that is abandoning the family or not making the wife legitimate. And so instead, because he's not the one who has to walk around with the progeny or the result or the product of his seed, she is. Because like Emunah said, he can Johnny Appleseed all through the country, but she's the one with the evidence of the deed, and so she's the one that gets saddled with things. We talk about that. We see it in contemporary times. We saw it during the times of slavery. We see it during the middle of 90s, where we see this fracturing happening, that it's really the women that get saddled down with the consequences of these things. But Psalms and Job and Exodus and all of these other spaces lets us know that this is not okay, that this sense of denial of circumstances is not okay, and the Most High will intercede. And so the Most High is going to judge these things. So for us I find polygyny as the magic pill being problematic, because I have read too many instances. I know too many families personally where we keep getting told the polytopian version of this particular paradigm, but there are also the other instances where there are men that don't even know the names of their children for the multitude of them. And before you think that I'm being sarcastic or engaging hyperbole, this is a fact. It's on record that they don't know the names of their children. I think there was recently one of the polygamy shows. He only had 5, or maybe I think he had 12, but he couldn't name all of them, let alone in order. And so that's just he had 5 wives and I think 12 children, and couldn't name all of them. So I'm not talking about the excess of in the hundreds. In the case of a man that did have I believe 100 or maybe more, he not only did he not know their names, he wound up marrying one of his daughters because he didn't know she was his daughter. And so this idea of polygyny helping with single motherhood, if the man is being divided in so many ways, then once again the onus remains on the mother, because the man has to be split in so many ways. There's no way that he has the ability to cater to a family when he has multiple families. Okay, let's say I'll retract to there's no way. Instead, I will state that it becomes more challenging to be present where you have to be present in many, many spaces. Omnipresence is what we usually attribute to the Creator and not to the man. And so I would caution some of these polygynous conversations and all of the hopes being thrown into the polygyny basket, because there's a hole in the bucket, dear Liza. We may want to think this through a bit more.
All right, thank you for that. That was the voice of Sister Mayanah. Wow, time is like floating. We're going to come to Sister Huldah right now. For those who have just tuned in and wondering what they're talking about now, speaking about single motherhood, this is our third round commentary as we put the layers on this cake to take a look at then and now, who's really responsible. And now, hopefully, in the next round, we're going to go into what are some of the solutions that, we've been screaming from the mountaintops about collectively, about what are some of the solutions that we can do to help, avoid some of the scenarios that are kind of unnecessary because they come through carelessness and inability to negotiate, because a lot of times the woman is trying to negotiate on her own behalf. And I'll say this, and I'll pass it to Sister Huldah, as I think it was Brother Ahwar or Sister Mayanah mentioned, somebody mentioned about the woman in the field. I think it was Sister Malaka. When the woman in the field is seduced, the probability is that within that seduction, let's say if she did conceive during that seduction, if the transaction doesn't go through, she's still with child. Now, if she doesn't have a father, because now it's intergenerationally that this single motherhood issue is going on and on and on, she really doesn't have anybody to speak up on her behalf. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so we see situations in the Torah that tries to deal with what could possibly be what we're seeing today. But because the fathers are not there, the wise men are not there, the council, the elders, they're not there. A lot of people are out of position. Then she just goes, a lot of times, the children, to the wayside. And he gets to go on unless he has a conscience somewhere. And so, this is very important as we're having this conversation. I know it may hit home for some and not others, because for a lot of our people just returning, this is real. This is present. This is their experience. This is their past experience. This is their present experience. So we want to be sensitive to that and we're aware of that. We have a variety of people who may be listening, and we may not know you personally, but we're speaking to some of the things that Sister Malaka said. We have to honestly look at how we got to where we are and how we can avoid such spaces in the future. So, Sister Huldah, thank you for your patience. The mic is yours. Sister Huldah, are you still there?
Oh, there we go. I said that was a lot. Sitting here trying to hold my peace and kind of jot down on my whiteboard in front of me kind of what was coming around was really intense. You could just see once again the how we're divided in our thinking about this topic. Even though, as Sister Emunah stated at the beginning, it's not a blame game. We still have this blaming being done. The first brother that came on added some really good insight, but in the end, it came down to it doesn't apply to this woman in this situation, no matter how we slice it, would be considered a whore. And it really tweaked something in my mind because we are seeking for this this area of resolve and responsibility. And a verse came to my mind, Hosea 4:14, and it says, "I will not punish your daughters when they commit whoredom, nor your spouses when they commit adultery. For themselves are separate, for you, yourselves are separate with whores, and they sacrifice with harlots. Therefore the people that do not understand shall fall." The situation is always going to return back to the leadership. And Sister Mayanah stated the point that the Most High will judge on this issue. And it seems like the leadership is deflecting. I have the experience through the capacity that I've been chosen to minister to talk to a lot of women. And a lot of the situation with the women is that the Band-Aid that's trying to be applied to the situations that we see in single parenthood and single mothers is mainly leading right back to this lust. And Sister Mayanah pointed out again, dealing with this whole idea of polygyny. You can't Band-Aid lust with lust. It doesn't work that way. And so you have these men who are like, oh, yeah, polygyny will work with single parenthood, but if we would be honest within our community, how many of these men who are taking these second and third and fourth and fifth wives are taking the women who have the children, who are taking these women to instruct these women in Torah? And the reality is it's very few and far in between. I'm not going to pick 4 scenarios that have worked in comparison to all the others that have failed. Talk this about this idea of something not being functional within this land. Well, something's not functional in any land if the mindset of the people that are participating in it is skewed. Trying to make it like polygyny is an instruction is, I think, where we're falling, because the instruction is the Torah, and trying to skip over all the other instructions is almost asinine. I can't really agree with that being the solution. The solution is to, I think Sister Emunah talked about it, which is to return back to the proper way of raising and setting the foundation for our children. I think, my brain is kind of jumbled up, but another person spoke about this idea of a mother not being able to really function the capacity of a mother because she's carrying on multiple functions. She's not having the ability to guard. So you have this generational thing happening because there's so many different imbalances. And those imbalances are coming because of the lack of order. Polygyny doesn't immediately create order. You have plenty of people who are in polygyny because they're like, oh, if I had 5 wives and they were making $10 an hour, then I got, $50 an hour coming into the home, and look at how we're nation building. But you end up with this issue of quality versus quantity. You can't have both in a lot of scenarios where Sister Mayanah said that idea that you have these men who are having all these children and are building within their own strength, which is against Torah. There's plenty of times in Torah where the Most High speaks about men building in their own strength and negating Torah. And you have these people building their own strength, and they don't even know their children. They don't know what's going on in their homes, and you're really creating a breeding ground of spiritual bacteria that is going to disease and permeate throughout the community. The last point that I wrote down was the idea of seduction. These men are seducing the women. Like, yes, women are always first attributed this seductive behavior because naturally the way that we're made and the way that we carry ourselves with a feminine energy does draw the masculine energy. But at the same time, there is the element of male seduction. You do have men out here having children. You have men in Torah who are supposed to be pillars in the community who are having babies literally everywhere and not taking responsibility for them. So this is not just an issue of people who are, quote-unquote, living under curses, but this is even happening within our community right now as we speak with people who are holding the Torah in their hand and still making the same silly mistakes and causing our people to perpetuate these same cycles.
All right, now, that was the voice of Sister Huldah. You had me over here like, that last part, I was like, yeah, they're doing it with the Torah scroll in their hand with the little pointer and the kippah on their head. This is happening, and a lot of the women, and I'm going to come to Sister Malaka, are drawn to the teacher, the moray, the leader. It's like the pastor's wife syndrome, but it's a moray syndrome, a rabbi syndrome. This stuff, because we're the same people, no matter what context you put us in, it's the same people. Women are going to be, for the most part, attracted to power, and men are going to exploit that reality. And so because I've seen it, and I'm quite sure many people, if you observe it, if you've been in any Knesset, in any spaces where you see that we've gathered, you would see these things. And ultimately, because there are oftentimes there's no safeguard, and becomes the Torah is being interpreted as allowing this type of behavior. You understand? And a lot of times the women and men, not only just women and men, are being miseducated. We're not realizing, like what Malachi says, what therefore is do two become one? I know y'all know the text. Why do two become one? It's so that you can bring forth righteous seed. So if in the end your crop is suspect, then you kind of didn't do your job. Because the Most High didn't give you your mate to just be over there doing the D and the P challenge and singing, I can't because that joint is in the air right now, and singing about all the things you would do for the D and for the P. That's not what it's supposed to be about. That's some Baal Peor type stuff. We're the same people. You know what I'm saying? And it's like when we went into the land and they came to Joshua and they came to the elders, they was like, yo, didn't we just get in trouble for this stuff? When we looking, and I'm not going to go all the way off, but look a little bit more into Baal Peor and check out what they was doing. You understand what I'm saying? The Moabites and all of them. So this is nothing. We have to control ourselves in these areas, not suppress yourself in this area, because the Most High has given you this creative energy to reproduce. But the sexual energy just doesn't reproduce children. And also, I would say, and I will come to Sister Malaka, if we are producing children in a lustful, debased, low vibrational, Emunah said it on season 3, episode 1, low vibrational energy, we wonder why we got babies twerking in Pampers. Talking about, go ahead, baby. See, like, this is the stuff that we need to really just get all out the closet and take a look at all why little Ray Ray, you know what I'm saying, dropping it like it's hot at 2. You know what I'm saying? And this is, we think it's cute and we think it's funny, or we go the other way opposite, which was we suppress it totally. And we now you're floating in the clouds like a monk, and you're not telling the children or teaching them or preparing them that this is the energy that the Creator has given you so that you will want to reproduce. Because the truth is, after you have one child, you would think hard if the Most High didn't make you to forget. You'd be like, Negro, no. You know what I'm saying? One child. China don't even need to make a law. So the Most High put certain things in His wisdom in place so that we can repopulate the earth. But there is an order to all of this, which is, as Huldah just brought out, as Israelites even, we're still taking a Negroite, I said it, Negroite mentality to the whole conversation. And we really going to need to level up. Sister Malaka, the mic is yours. And we're going to come back. I know y'all probably pressing one. Emunah said Negroite at 2 hours and 35 minutes. Emunah said the D challenge. I know y'all got your time markers. It's all good. I love y'all as well. May the Most High be praised. Sister Malaka, the mic is yours.
I'm over here laughing right now. Okay. So I think I'm loving everything that I'm hearing, everything that Sister Emunah has been bringing out, Sister Mayanah, Sister Huldah, yes, to all of everything we've been saying. And what I would add this time around is just, we are operating as a people who do not know what manner of Elohim we serve, for those of us who are calling ourselves awake. This is an Elohim who said that David was a man, or Dauid was a man after his own heart. And Dauid was a man who knew how to come before his Abba and bear himself, become naked before him, and acknowledge the crookedness in his own self so that he could be cleansed, so that he could be corrected, so that he could be straightened. And when he wasn't doing that for himself, he was receptive to the man of Yah that would come to him and correct him. We have people who do not do that type of inner work at all. They simply think that because they know some scripture and they are wearing the right tzitzit and they're, saying the right words, that there's no spiritual transformation needed. But the scripture tells us that in order to enter into the kingdom of the Most High, we have to be transformed in our minds. We have to no longer think like Sister Emunah said, the Negro. Did you say Negro light or did you say Negro pen?
Sister, I said Negro lights. Negro lights.
I'm gonna say Negro pen. In the sense that we have a lot of Hellenistic ideas about how we're to operate. If I'm examining myself, then I understand that in order for me to be one with the Most High, I have to be repenting of sin in my life. And in order for me to repent of sin in my life, I have to agree with His word about what sin is. I have to be willing to say, yep, that what I just did right there, how I'm acting right now, that's sin. If I'm not willing to do that, then there's no hope for me to repent, and there's no hope for me to change, and there's no hope for me to grow, and there's no hope for me to be better than I was yesterday. And I see a lot of people who are teaching, who are out here supposedly leading people who don't seem to be doing any self-reflection like our father David did. They don't seem to be doing that reflection. They don't seem to be praying the prayer, create in me a clean heart and renew a right and steadfast spirit in me. If there be any crooked way in me, if there's perversion in me, help me get that out. They're not praying that, And so if I can't be one with my Father, then how am I going to be one in a relationship with another person? I can't. I'm going to be hiding from that person. And how do I hide? I hide by having multiple people, multiple women, multiple men. Then nobody gets to know me because I'm not around. I'm just sticking and moving. I'm not around enough for them to really get to know me, who I am and what's really going on deep on the inside of me, how hurt I am by how my mother was, or how hurt I am by my father not being there, or whatever it is that's going on in my background that I have not allowed Elohim to deal with. So what I said earlier in the show is that we have a lot of people who are operating from a place of emotional deficit and mental illness. It is mental illness that will make a young woman have 5 children, knowing she has no means of support for those children, knowing that none of the men have committed to her to stand with her in raising these children, but she keeps craving the love, the attention, the affection that she feels for a moment when she's dealing with these men. That's not a stable person. That's not a balanced person. That's not a person who is echad with the Father. They haven't dealt with themselves. They haven't allowed Elohim to deal with them. Maybe they don't know how. And then to speak to the idea of, being a young woman and coming into this knowledge and meeting teachers who seem to me to be so powerful and so skillful and adept in the word, and then only to be lured into, a situation that I met when I was in the world. I meet a lot of young women like that. And then I'm going to say, too, for a lot of these brothers have been so deeply hurt by their mothers, by women who were charged with caring for them. And, they've seen a side of women or side of a woman that has made them fearful of being a woman. So they're never for real in their relationships. They're never sincere. And so, like Sister Emunah brought out, we're making babies in lust. We're also making babies out of emotional instability and out of emotional deficit and mental health issues. We're not getting help. We're not dealing with ourselves. We're not submitting to the Most High so that transformative work can happen in us. And instead, we're reaching out for flesh to comfort ourselves, like that Band-Aid that Sister Huldah said, comfort ourselves. And so there's this breakdown in communication and our ability to connect man to woman, and which is why we're not able to be together and dwell together and raise our children together, because we're sick. And only God can heal us, but we got to be real with Him in order to get the healing, and that's what we're not doing. And so conversations like this, I really appreciate, and I really am so happy that we're having it, and I'm a part of it because, I want to say that we have to get real. A lot of these brothers are hating women and putting women down and wanting to subjugate women because they are mad at their mothers. A lot of these women are having children with different men because they are sad and depressed and broken over the fact that their father wasn't there, or he was there and he took advantage of them. There's a myriad of issues going on in our communities, in our families. So I'm just saying that I think it starts with echad with the Father. And you can't do that if you're not being for real about sin in your life, because He's not going to be there for the mess. With that, I'll pass the mic.
Thank you for that. That was the voice of Sister Malaka. You said so much there, but I'm gonna have to withhold myself as I make this special announcement. We come into the 10 o'clock hour. That means if you're on social media, it's going to be cut off. So please make sure you're called in 319-527-6239. If you have a question or comment, feel free to press 1. I'm going to go over to Brother Sal right now and see if anybody has anything to say on the lines. Brother Sal.
All right, so we're going back to the phone lines right about now. If you already called in, please press number 1 if you have a question or a comment. But if you're listening on social media, again, you know that number by now. It's 319-527-6239. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to 916-747. You're live in air.
Hello, Sal. Hello to all the women on this panel. Emunah, Mayanah, Huldah, Malaka. This is Sister Ashanti.
Hey, what's going on? How you doing?
Hey, Sister Ashanti.
Hey, shalom, sis.
Shalom. All you guys have said marvelous things, and thank the Father for all your comments. I do have a couple of comments, and then just want to add some things. If I could, I'll be real quick. Sister Huldah hit the nail on the head with one of the things. A lot of the brothers who practice polygyny, you don't see them taking on women who already have 2, 3, 4 children. And that's something that needs to be worked out. Also, problems with single parenthood. There's a lot of mishaps as to why parents are single. You know, there could have been a death with the father or mother. You know, I know a father right now who's a single father because of the death of the mother. So that's another thing. Also, rape. A lot of people don't talk about rape, but a lot of women, when they do get pregnant because of rape, they choose to keep the child because they do not believe in abortion. I would like to add that Sister Malaka made another point, and I'll be done after this. We are definitely hurt. We haven't really healed. We think we picked up some knowledge, and that's all we need. I pose a solution to a lot of our brothers and sisters because of the Hellenism. The Hellenism means over here in America, we have taken on the culture of our oppressors, and our oppressors have definitely been influenced or bring on the culture of the Greeks and the Romans. That's what Hellenization is. So I suggest, or a solution is this. When people come into this walk, this Torah walk, maybe not just get into teachers. You know, let these women know they are supposed to be educated for themselves. When you are to fulfill a role of a woman from the garden or fulfill a role of the male of the garden, well, you're supposed to see what your role is and become self-sufficient in that role. You have to be educated to do your role. Another thing is I propose a solution that we get some sort of prayer line going, some sort of evangelism going, some sort of ministering going, some sort of counseling going. You know what I mean? Those things, those you know, what is it called? Like fivefold ministry. You know, we need some counseling. We need some prayer. We need some ministering and evangelism to help our brothers and sisters, because a lot of our brothers and sisters come into enlightenment of Torah because they're hurt and they need some healing. So that's the solutions I propose. And thank you, sisters. Yahweh bless y'all. God bless y'all. Love y'all. Shalom.
Thank you for that. That was the voice of Sister Ashanti. She'll be joining us next week on the sister show Under the Palm. So thank you for that. You know, you guys said some words that that's my main focus always has been, and continues to be healing. There's one thing I realized, and Sister Malaka said it, Sister Ashanti just said it. There's one thing I realized doing this for many years, 20 active years of my own personal healing, as well as sharing my findings, as well as sharing outlines and things of different nature with our people, is A, it's not easy. B, we are oftentimes not committed to the process. I've seen this with my own eyes. I'm not saying what I don't know or what I'm hypothesizing, is that it's easier for us to debate about scriptures. It's easier for us to hypothesize. But when we're talking about our own triggers, our own baggages, and our own issues that we have to deal with, not so easy. And a lot of people are not willing to do the work. That's point blank. That's just what I found. I've been in spaces where you're talking about epigenetic, deep-rooted issues that when you go into these places, the soul, what I call, has sepsis. You know what I'm saying? And we cover these things with a fine veneer of how much Torah I know, how much I can break, so that we can get what I call, and not only myself, but this supply of energy from people, from the things that we have heaped onto ourselves. And a lot of times for Israel, it's knowledge. And so because we may not have access to monetary gain at this point, we use knowledge as that currency. And so and this becomes a problem because we draw to one another because we want that knowledge from one another, but we don't really sometimes we don't like one another, and this is why oftentimes we fall apart. Somebody may be drawn to somebody because they want whatever they feel they have, and now after they feel like they got what they needed, boom, they broke off, and I'm gonna do my own thing. I don't need that person, X, Y, Z. And this is just my personal experience. Where we have prayer lines, we have healing guides, we have all of these things. Do we really want them? Do we want to do what it takes? For instance, I have a free course. I've been talking about it since last year before. 7 ways to identify toxic people in your life. okay? The reality is some of us is that toxic person. Some of us have been exposed to that toxic person. It's free. Like, I put my time, energy, and effort to give it to the people and say, just go through it. Just find out, but we don't want it enough. The Most High said He will heal us, but we have to be willing and humble and willing to go through that process, like Dauid said, like Sister Malaka brought up. Are we willing to say, yo, that's me? You know what I'm saying? The Proverbs, I did this, I have that up there too. The Proverbs talk about all of these ways that we behave foolish. Are we willing to be like, you know what? That was me right there. I was real foolish at that point. My apologies. Please excuse me. Please forgive me. Are we willing to be humble in our relationships? Are we willing to be, you know what, tell your child, you know what, I was actually wrong right there. My apology. This is the personal development that no matter how much we talk, this is what the relationship challenge is about. It's not just about pointing the finger, then we're going to come to the phone. And the reason why I'm responding is because sometimes we may not know that this stuff already exists, that everybody has their portion. But again, if we don't know one another's portion, or we don't respect one another's portion, or we don't value one another's portion, we're not going to give ear to the fact that what we think needs to be already is. And I'm one of those persons who, and you can ask Sister Mayanah, you can ask Brother Sa, I'm one of those persons, if I see you rocking in your lane, I'm going to be like, yo, come through. We can rock together because there's no threat. But because some of us men and women still feel threatened by one another, and the fact that somebody shines in an area because we haven't done that internal work, we're not going to work together. So I would agree, self-work is what's going to bring us to unity. Humbling ourselves is going to bring us to unity. Commitment to the Most High is going to bring us to unity. But if we're not ready and we're not ready to do the work, no amount of talking is going to get us there. No amount of talking is going to get us there. And with that, I'm going to go to Brother South for the next caller.
All right. Once again, single motherhood or women to blame is the topic. By the way, family, if you missed any part of this show, you can always go to the archives, go check it out. Of course, it's on Blog Talk Radio, www.blogtalkradio.com/debate talk for you. We're in the iTunes in the podcast section. That's right. We're on iTunes in the podcast section. It's absolutely free. Just go, type in the search box, Debate Talk for you, subscribe, and of course, we're on YouTube. But let's go to the next caller. Oh, and by the way, we're in the third hour of this show, and actually we're on the air for the third hour due to donations. So we appreciate the fans out there, the family that donated, to the show. That's why we can give you, more content. So we're actually on the air for the third hour instead of going to the overtime portion of the show. It's on the air for everybody to hear. So we appreciate the people that donate to the brand, and much love to you guys. So let's go to the next caller, though. Let's go to 530-434. You're live on air.
Yo, what's the words, Brother B. out of Sacramento? Much love to the panel.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Shalom. I've been listening for the last, 45 minutes, and everybody made some valid points. And the topic is, are women to blame are the women to blame because they're single, or are single mothers, or are women to blame? I would say this, and correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that there is a big miscommunication issue between male and female, especially when it comes to us who claim to know the Torah. It's written in the Torah that male and female were created in the image of the Most High, and we both have his characteristics. So the thing is that we're cursed based on the fall, and the issue is we do not know how to properly communicate with each other. And if we do not know how to properly communicate with each other, then we're also not going to properly communicate with the Most High because he had put his spiritual aspects in us. So I look at it from that perspective. And me being a single father, I'm raising my daughters. Their mother passed away. So my thing is that we have to learn how to put the Most High into perspective based on how we treat each other. And that's what I'm seeing. I mean, I'm out here in California, so I don't know what everybody's personal experience is, but from what I see is that we, as human beings, whether we be Israel or not, we do not know how to properly communicate. We believe just because we have testosterone, us men, we're supposed to dominate and rule over. That's not the way of the Most High. We were not created to rule or be subjected to each other's rule. We were created in his image to perform his will, his pleasure. That's what it says in Isaiah 46. It says that my will be done, my pleasure will be done. And I established it from the end. I established the end from the beginning. So what he established from the beginning was us being united. Man and woman united, they're anointed. They're together. They become one flesh. Man and woman together, they bear the image of God. That makes them Messiah as well. So with that, I'm going to yield the mic, and much love and shalom to all. Blessings.
Wow, that was nice.
Thank you for the caller. Thank you for your words. Thank you for your sentiments. And may the Most High continue to be with you as you rear your children. And again, for any party, male or female, to do it alone is not an easy feat. And so may the Most High continue to be with you where you are as well as your family. Brother Sal, anyone else pressing one? We're going to come back to you, panelists. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for standing by. You know, it's flowing, like Brother Sal said, into the third hour. Anyone else on the line right now?
Not at this time, but we do have a comment, let me see, or a question, matter of fact, on social media. Mayanah, you want to have the honors and read that? I know I saw you, address that person. You want to read that comment?
Absolutely. Out in the trenches, we do have a comment from one of the sisters that asks, if the brothers see a single mother is struggling, why not just help the family? Why the immediate need to want her as his wife?
Let's ask Brother Ahwar. Your brother. Brother Ahwar, did you hear the question?
Yeah.
Have you run into this thought process?
Well, I know where I'm from, the Israelites I come with. Now, well, if somebody asks for a donation, like if a sister got in a situation, brother would collect money and help. But as far as somebody taking initiative, without her saying anything, like, can observe and see that pockets is funny, that didn't really go on. But if she asks for donations, men will come together and be like, look, everybody put some money together for the sister. I've seen that happen many times, yeah. But taking initiative, like, look, I'm going to go and take her to the big shopping mall and all that and do it anonymously. Anonymous, how you say anonymous? Well, you know what I'm trying to say. Anonymous, do it in an anonymous act and say go to one of those big food banks or whatever, them food stores and just buy it and don't let them know that they did it. Now, you don't see stuff like that, but if she needs a donation, some brothers will give a donation.
This is interesting, and we're going to come to the panelists. We're going to come to Sister Huldah because Brother Ahwar, as we take a little trip in the forest, the Torah speaks about ongoing. I know we're not in the land at this time, and I know you said about asking, but there's this thought that they're always amongst. Those who are in need are always amongst. And the very way in which Israel is supposed to operate is with those who are less fortunate are in mind. And so it's not like this one-off GoFundMe type of thought process, but it's an ongoing thought process so that the widow and the fatherless, and even though they may not be widows, even if you wanted, like somebody said, you can't, Brother Mercer said you can't call her a widow, well, we could call them fatherless. If the child doesn't have a father, if the father's not present, and if you don't want to call her a widow, the child is still fatherless. And the Torah accounts for those individuals. It was in the sense of gleaning, not clearing your whole field, but how would that, as we're talking about practical solutions, how would that translate today? When you're giving, are they, and I know I'm about to touch some toes. There's some Knessets and some places of worship who's like, give them the tithes. So if they're taking quote-unquote tithes, and that's another story for another day, should they be having a portion of that money for the single mothers in the congregation on an ongoing basis? So if the congregation has an issue, say, with the woman going to welfare, should now the monies collected by the congregation be some of it apportioned to those children who are in need? Sister Huldah, what are your thoughts?
I totally agree with that. I think this issue of I like how the question was asked online. I don't know who asked it, but if you're listening, I love the question because it's something that has come up in discussion. It's like the idea of whoring the daughters of Zion. So if I need help, but I'm not willing to give you my physical asset, you're not willing to give me your financial asset. where that shouldn't be the case. But that is the case right now. It's like, why should I be helping a woman if I'm not getting nothing out of it? Is really what's at the root of it. And I do agree, in these congregations where there are women who are struggling, that whole idea of like, oh, we're praying for you, go and be fed, but not providing, or this idea of, oh man, this young man is acting up in the congregation, where's his daddy? Instead of saying, okay, Moray, okay, can you assign a brother to this young man? Maybe, okay, you're not playing hookup and giving somebody to his mom, but can we assign a man in the congregation who has a family to mentor this young man? Are they having a hard time with your congregation raising money? Isn't the whole thing about community? And so that's something here that we push. There's nobody in our congregation that goes without, and if they do, it's because they are very hush about it. Because we got a system where if we find out you didn't say something, that's a problem. And I'm sure that's not the case in point for everybody, but that's how it is here. You're single and you need somebody to go to your son's school, a brother is getting sent to your son's school to sit with your son or with your daughter or however it's going to work. There has to be this thing of family, but so many people are in congregations for the purple tassels and the huge feast days, and you don't see anything or any fruit outside of those days where that is the function. It is a village. Going back to the biblical context, if you did have a single woman, she was being supported by the community as a whole. And if she is a single woman who did end up in that way because of indiscretion, then she's being rehabilitated. She's not being paraded in front of the congregation like, okay, who wants this to be their second wife because she's not worthy to be a first wife? That's not the mentality that we should have. And I feel like that's what's happening a lot amongst our people. It's almost like you are demonizing a person for not knowing how they should have functioned in Torah. Right now there's a lot of people who are going to be in a lot of situations because they were not even raised close to in Torah. And now for some reason I'm in truth and I'm getting more flack for my condition than I did in the world. And that shouldn't be the case. The reality is, in Torah, you're a new creature. I get it. I'm walking in this new life, and I'm trying to the best of my ability, and I'm trying to break these curses. So it takes everybody to pitch in and help. That's just how it works over here.
Thank you for that, and thank you for that, Sister Huldah. We're gonna go back to the phone lines. You brought up some interesting points, and we speak about this one often. It's the expectations. Or I like to speak about it because, in my estimation, our expectations are unrealistic. Not to say that the Torah is unrealistic. It's looking at the people and where they're coming from and not realizing that, as she said, some of this stuff has never been taught. And it's like expecting my 5-year-old to know their multiplication table when I'm the one who was responsible for teaching them. These are the unrealistic things that we come to one another. If you say, oh, yes, sister, how long you been in the truth? 3 months? And then now you're expecting them to know everything. That it says, teach your children diligently. Okay, they apparently weren't taught. So what we're seeing coming to the table, and this is the issue that I see, that a lot of the people that are at the front line are just pouring on these people, layering, let me give you some understanding. This is what I experienced. Let me get you some deep understanding about, let me go into the, and they go into the depths. And it's like, well, wait a minute. These people don't even know Torah. There's some places where you will come in and the Bible as it is not read. There's an assumption that you are already supposed to know. And what we have is when you begin to try to have discussions, it's like, wow, I didn't know that. Because the initial teachers really look to, wow, let me dive off into the book of Enoch, sis, and show you, And so we're not really being sensitive to where the people are when they actually come in, and the fact that they're actually coming in with a whole lot of baggage, both males and females. And just because you memorize, 1 year worth of verses doesn't make you a teacher. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear it, but it doesn't make you a teacher right off the bat because you memorize a whole lot of verses and you know how to read it off because you haven't gone through the purging process. The first thing, what did Isaiah say? And I'm going to come to Sal. When the Malaka came to him, he was like, whoa, man, I'm a man of unclean lips. I'm not even ready for the job. If you look at a lot of the servants of the Most High, they did not jump to the opportunity to go into certain spaces. There was a certain reverence and a fear like, whoa, I'm not ready. The Most High is like, yo, Jeremiah's like, I'm a child. Like, yo, don't tell me what you are. And these are the people that the Most High went for because there was a level of humility there. And so as we're looking at the teachers and we're looking at the leaders and we're looking at, just keep in mind that they are broken just as you are. They may be a little older in this, quote, truth. They may be a little bit advanced than you are in knowing certain things, but it doesn't mean that they applied them. And if I could say anything, if you don't take anything away from this conversation as we are talking about single motherhood, for the women, is just because the man can, let's Bible study and chill, doesn't mean that he's applying these laws into his life. So to just assume that, you're doing yourself a great disservice. You need to interview everybody. You need to watch behavior. You need to watch mannerisms. You need to pay close attention. But the issue comes in is when, as Sister Malaka says, she has an emotional deficit, when she hasn't done the internal work, when she hasn't healed those spaces that make her vulnerable, he can exploit them. And the same thing is not only just woman to man, it's the women as well exploiting the men's vulnerability. And this is why we're here at the Relationship Challenge, you see. But I'm going to go ahead to Brother Sal and see if anybody else. I'm sorry?
I just want to say something right quick.
Who's that, Brother War? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I just want to say, I hope that you got to have a part 2 to this topic because, I mean, it's good, but I don't think we really got deep. It takes a lot to get really, this is a serious, heavy topic, and we didn't get down to the infection.
All right, Brother War. All right.
Okay.
I hear you.
All right.
Brother War has spoken. Like, again, a lot of these things that we visit, like Brother War said, you unpacking it, you ain't reached nowhere yet. But you kind of have to, dust off the top layer a little bit and kind of brush it up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Put on your dust mask and all that good stuff. Because you can't necessarily just deep dive into something that, as I believe the opening statements was, it's layered. It's so layered that you have to peel these things back like an onion. Okay, we're talking about epigenetics. Okay, we're talking about intergenerational trauma. Okay, we're talking about slavery. Okay, we're talking about, single motherhood perpetually throughout generations. Okay, we're talking about absentee fathers. If a man has grown up where his father wasn't there and he learned to say, well, my father's father wasn't there, my father, now he has maladaptively come to say, it doesn't matter. There's some men, because we're talking about economics and he's not able to provide for the family, he has to convince himself that they're better off without me. There's some men that their manhood keeps them away because in their understanding, if I can't provide, then I'm not a man, and if I'm not a man, then I don't need to be there. So sometimes we're taught that men don't have emotions and feelings in their core. That's not true. Mm-hmm. Some men are just on the strength of not being able to provide. And if you're a man out there and you like, Emunah, you bugging out, or if you agree, go ahead and press 1. There's some men who are on those levels who won't show their face until they have something to give. And if they never have something to give for 20 years, you will not see their face. And the child doesn't understand that. The woman doesn't understand that because to them, okay, at least have your presence there. But when his presence comes, guess what? Now we hungry, and you looking at him and he looking at you, and what happened? His manhood is hurt, and he walks away. And so these are some of the things that are contributing to what we're seeing in abundance. But Brother Sal, I hear you, Brother Ahwar. We're going to have to arrange for that. Brother Sal, anybody else on the phone lines?
All right, we have, I think Brother Mercy's trying to call back, 443-815. Go ahead.
What I wanted to say is I think sometimes what we forget is that in this walk, like with Abraham and with Moses and with Abraham didn't have a Torah to read. Moses didn't have a Torah to read. Adam and Eve, they didn't have Torahs to read. To a lot of brothers, Torah is just a book. But see, the thing is, what happens when there is no Torah? How do you live Torah when you can't read it? That's the question. Because brothers just want to quote what it says, but it's not their life. Torah was their life. It wasn't just something they did, okay, or Moses didn't quote a verse and say, okay, it says here in verse number, chapter number. No. That was his life. They lived this. So with men, we gotta understand is that I live my life. I don't live my life. I used to live my life studying all the scriptures, but now I still study scripture, but I look at it differently. I don't quote scripture no more. You know, this is what I'm trying to become. This is not something that I'm just. I mean, as you alluded to earlier, which is perfect. What you said, great. What you said was excellent. A man feel like he can't provide if he has nothing to bring to the table, that he's useless. I feel that way. I have it. Yeah, all men should have that problem, and that's the truth. Because the scripture teaches that if a man don't take care of his household, he's worse than an infidel. So the scripture teaches that. No, you are some trash if you can't provide for your family. No, that's the truth. So you should feel like trash. Now, what are you going to do about that? That's the question. Are you going to just leave? No. The men back in Bible times, what they struggled. They struggled with their families. Did they run into famines? Yes, they did. Did they run into hard times? Yes, they did. Did they hunger? Yes, they did. But they stayed with their families and fought it out and struggled it out. See, that's the thing. When you don't have and you still there and you still there to fight the battle, that's where the real man comes into play. But a lot of men can't do that. But that's what they did. Because you can read in Torah how they ran into famines, how they didn't have food to eat. But what happened? They still stuck it out. See, that's the part that's missing, you know. But you can't read that in a book. you just that's just who you have to be. You have to be that type of person. You have to be able to stick it out with the person, even through hard times. And a lot of times, the men are running away from situations that happen. So what I wanted to say, going back to the topic, are the women to blame? No, because the men back in Torah days didn't blame the women. You won't see one man blaming the woman. The only time you see that with Adam when he talks about his wife, you know, the wife you gave me, boom, 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 boom. But then he says the wife you gave me. So who is he really blaming? See, I listened to Adam. He said the wife you gave me. So he's really looking at the one who gave him the wife versus the wife herself. Even in that, he didn't blame her. He blamed the Most High. So I just wanted to say that the patriarchs of old didn't blame their women. They didn't. You'll see it. They never copped out the blame woman. So I would say no. You know, men just need to man up. And you're going to go through some hard times, man. You're going to lose your job from now. That's going to happen. I mean, things happen. But you got to stick it out, bruh. You got to stick it out. And so we just got to man up, do what we're supposed to do, our responsibilities. A lot of times, because we're not doing what we're supposed to do, it falls on the ladies. So let's just be real about it. A lot of times it falls on the men not doing what they're supposed to. But I'm not here to excuse the ladies either, because there's some women out there that's living foul. So I'm not here to excuse them, but what I am saying is that some men just need, most of us are not doing what we're supposed to do. As a result, that's what we had. So I'll just leave it there. And thanks so much. You guys said a whole great lot. Everything you said was right with the mental and all those social, psychological, all those issues play a part. And I like what the sister said when she said she has a support group for those single mothers out there. I think that's what we need. We need mentoring programs, you know, and different things like that. I do mentoring. I'm a teacher, so I do mentoring all the time, so I understand that. Most of my kids come from single-family homes, or no family homes, or foster homes. Boom, boom, boom. I've seen it all. I deal with all of it. So all I got to say is we're missing men. We're missing from the equation. A lot of times I teach math. We're missing from the equation, and that's why we had a problem. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you for that. That was the Brother Mercy. I just want to say this is why, you know, this show, this opportunity that Brother Sal has afforded us on his platform is to show that men and women on an ongoing basis, this is the beginning of season 3 for those who are just joining us, can have conversations about serious issues in our community and be peaceable to one another. We can agree, we can disagree, but we are a working model of how we don't necessarily have to agree with everything, and we can work through, as Brother Mercy was saying, the difficult parts. And this is when we're talking about the healing of a nation. It's not just, oh, come, let's pray. Because there was a time when Moshe was praying and Moses was like, get up. You know what I'm saying? It's time to do something. There's the part that the Creator is responsible for, and then there's the part that we have to do. And this, hopefully, for those who are listening in your spaces and in your areas, is that if you're not doing or if you want to do, is to reestablish this respect for one another and this ability to converse with one another and get to the source of our issues and hopefully take thoughts, these information back to our spaces and actually use them, actually apply them. So I want to thank Brother Mercy, who has been listening for Season 1 and always commenting. Sometimes he's on the panel, and I just want to thank you for letting your voice be heard. I'm going to go to Brother Sal again to see, because we want the callers, and then we're going to come to the panelists, and wind it down. It's 10:30. Wow. So we're going to go to the callers to see if anybody else has their hand in the air, and then we're going to come back to some practical solutions. Brother Ahwar said we should have a part 2, and I agree. But for now, let's just hear some of the real-time solutions that we can leave here with, at least to put a bug in somebody's ear. If we can't, fix what's already necessarily broken, at least we could possibly prevent somebody from getting in a compromising situation in the near future. So, Brother Sal, does anyone have their hands in the air at this time?
All right, we have a lot of people listening to the show. And once again, family, all you got to do is press number 1. If you already called in, it's press number 1. Other than that, we have 28 minutes left in the air, so it's up to you, whether we get some more of your calls or we pretty much get some last words from everybody on the panel. Again, it's up to you guys. We have more time, though, for questions and comments. Again, the number is 319-527-6239. Nobody else press number. Hold on. Okay, I think somebody pressed number 1. Hold on, let me see. 916-747. Did you press number 1? Good.
No, I didn't press number 1, Sal. This is Ashanti again. I'm just still listening.
Okay. All right,
so
nobody else press number 1.
We're going to do the rotation now. We're going to have our last words for the first segment. Something practical, whether or not you want to recap from your experience, if this was your sister or if this was your friend or your brother, what would you say to them? What would you tell them if they're new or they're entering into a space that they can possibly find themselves becoming a single parent if they're not careful? Things that they could possibly do to prevent, getting themselves into certain precarious situations. Brother Ahwar, what would you tell that individual and your closing thoughts?
Right. Just said the reason why I suggested part 2, and I said we got to get in it because in my suggestion is the gospel, and the reason why, the true gospel, not that Christianity garbage, but the true teachings of the Lamb is because that it goes into the hidden evils of a man's mind and how we can conspire to do things or move in a fashion that a lot of us are not aware. I'll give a quick example. When I first started driving tractor trailers, the guy that was training me, he told me, he said, hey, man, he said, when I went to the truck stop, he said, did you talk to anybody? I said, no, why? He said, because a dude came up to me and he said, you ain't going to make it. You're not going to finish the program. But the hidden evil in him telling me that was that he was a trainer and his hustle was that he would get you to quit so he would get paid trainer's pay. So he told me that to destroy my confidence so I would quit. So he didn't have to train me. He can get that trainer's pay. So what I'm saying is there's an evil within all of us that we don't know how to fight like that, where we can conspire against things in relationships. And as men, we have our things that we do against women that's causing the disservice. That's evil, subliminally evil. And you have women that do things that's subliminal evil to men. And we need to sit down and expose that together on our side and on their side so we can really, because there's an enemy fighting against both of us, which is Satan, that was talked about way in Genesis. And that's what's really keeping us divided, that we don't really have understanding on. So that's why I said we need to really get into that part too, because we can know the commandments, Torah law all day, but if we don't know how to get past that diabolical evil that we all have within us and know how to get past that and fight it, and we don't know that we don't even believe it exists. We don't believe in that world. I call it behind the curtain. We don't even believe in that. We don't believe those type of things exist. So that's what's beating us down, because we don't believe that evil that's against both of us, the male and the woman, is fighting against us. So that's why I said that, but that's all I'll say. That's what I would suggest. So I pass the mic.
Thank you for that. Brother Ward wants to talk about the subliminal egos. I like to call it the ego, and I think that's an excellent conversation, Brother Awar, because it's the battle within that oftentimes, some people, they want to personify, you want to call it Hashatan, the adversary, but it's the battle within the self. And I'm going to come to Sister Mayanah. One thing I realize in children, because I'm with my children all the time, is making them aware of this conversation that's happening. And just sitting there watching children grow from a baby to, growing through these different stages. And when you give them the tools to let them know and be aware that there's a battle now, ask them questions like, why did you just do that? What made you do this? What is this inclination? You make your children aware, and you give them the tools to fight this battle that Brother Awar is speaking about. It's not necessarily, get thee behind me, Satan. It's you. It's the mind within you, the opposition to the Creator. That inclination to do evil. You understand what I'm saying? And it's an awareness, know thyself. So I think that's an awesome conversation, Brother War, because that's the conversation we have in this house most of the times, is this awareness and how to, like you said, fight that battle. Mm-hmm. It is definitely a battle that one has to struggle, like Yaakov struggled with the angel. It's a struggle you have to overcome. You can't just lay down and be like, oh, it's all over. So a thought might come into the man's mind. A thought might come into the woman's mind to say, hey, do this even though, X, Y, Z, Z. And because of the right now, I need it right now, I'm going to get it right now, we don't think about those consequences until they arise. And this also contributes to the single motherhood conversation that we're having. So I definitely think you on some solonomic stuff right now, Brother Orr. So definitely we're going to come back to that because I like that kind of stuff. But Sister Mayanah, let's hear your closing thoughts on this conversation. Do you think we need a part 2, Sister Mayanah? What are your thoughts? What are some practical information? I know you're always in the trenches, always talking to the women real time. What would be your thoughts on this matter, your closing thoughts? I relinquish the mic.
Absolutely. I want to begin by agreeing that we absolutely should revisit this and have another segment where we can give a deeper treatment of the issue. I always say, we have to have the proper diagnosis if we're looking for a cure, and I think that that's where we should begin in so many spaces. First of all, I think that we're still, in some ways, an orphaned people, separated from our culture and our people. Without the Creator, we are the fatherless, and we aren't connected to the law, statutes, and commandments. We have instead become wise in our own conceits, and we're not doing what we are supposed to do. We're looking for solutions within ourselves. I think another sister brought that out. And you brought out this idea of generational absenteeism, and in that way, we're looking at this we're adopting a bad past precedence, and we're saying because there has been this absentee and I'm okay, and this is a misdiagnosis, you're not okay, but we're not being honest about things. And that's another thing that both you, I, and others have been emphasizing, this idea of being honest about where you are, and that's one of the more practical ways of looking at things. We brought out the idea of there's a mental health issue that's not being properly diagnosed, not being properly acknowledged. This idea that the men are, and it was great to hear Brother Mercy confirm your prognosis, that there's a sense that the men, sometimes some men are saying, I can't be present if I can't produce, and there's a self kind of checking in that way. And that's, again, something that we see also happening in slavery, as you know, and we've shared with the public before, is that the abroad marriages allowed for the men to not have to watch the suffering or be seen suffering by their wives because they were on different plantations. So they were disconnected. They weren't able to see the abuses that the wife was going through or the struggles that the children were going through. Likewise, the women were not able to observe the humiliations that the men were going through on their plantations. So this kind of distance was and separation was a means of protecting this type of fragile sanity. Finally, in terms of practical application, I think that we do this personal inventory so that injuries are not exploited. Pay attention to what the other person is saying, because the other person will tell you who they are. And then for us to kind of abandon this idea that we're grown and we don't need other people. We need other people. We are a community. We are a nation. We are a family. And so a lot of this individualistic approaches are really going to be our undoing. And, this a Band-Aid, I loved that the sister brought that out because it reminds me of my favorite Nabi, Jeremiah, one of my favorite Nabis, Jeremiah. And he says to the people, that the people have, I'll give it to you. They have healed the brokenness of my people or my daughter superficially, saying peace, peace, but there is no peace. Were they ashamed because of the abominations they have done? They were not even ashamed at all. And this is what we find. We find that the people are doing one thing, and then they're trying to give these Band-Aid solutions, healing the daughters of Israel only slightly or superficially. And that has to end. Again, it goes back to this idea of misdiagnoses, or we are doomed to the latter portion of Jeremiah, where Jeremiah reminds us in 3 different places that the Most High said, you know what, don't even pray for them. Don't even pray for them. And it's got to be something where the Most High tells the prophet, don't even pray for them. That we are so deep in our own conceit, so deep in trying to come up with our own solutions, so comfortable in our orphan state, being separated from our Father, and having no compassion for the mothers, that the Most High says, you know what, don't even pray for them. So we don't want to be there. We have to properly diagnose our illness so that we can come to a place of healing, as you say, and look for the appropriate cure.
Well, thank you for that, Sister Mayanah. Peace with it. Is no peace. And that's kind of where we are. I'm going to come to Sister Huldah because, to agree with the war, this is going to take another conversation because in the whole thing, we talk about the widow, and the fatherless single motherhood, and we ain't talk about the children yet. We haven't spoke about the children. So, Sister Huldah, what are your closing thoughts and some suggestions, or what would you say to that sister if you could prevent her from getting into a space, if you could say anything, what would you say? What kind of bug would you drop in her ear to help her along her journey? The microphone.
So for me, in conversation, because obviously just like the other sisters say, these conversations come up quite often with women. And I think as a preventative care, because too often we're always dealing with the after effects. And we miss the chance to catch these things before they happen. So as a preventative care, we share with sisters that they're, especially coming into this walk, that your mind and heart should be so deep in the Father that you're looking for that fulfillment in other areas. You shouldn't even be there because that's where a lot of it comes from, that eagerness to gravitate toward a man or to find a man in truth. And the reality of it all is that you have not immersed yourself enough in functionality. You have not been purged enough of your dysfunction. You have not been healed, like Sister Mayanah has said, of those mental illnesses and fractures and stuntedness that comes from trauma, to even know and be able to search for what you need. We know what we want in a carnal sense, but we don't know what we need in a spiritual sense to really cover and begin to heal and begin to satisfy and those voids. And the first thing needs to be the Father. He needs to begin to fill the void. And then the man that comes along has to be cognizant of the fact that there are deficiencies and that there are voids when we're dealing with our women if they have been through trauma. And so finding a man that is willing to wash his woman in the Word and not take away or demean or break her in our healing process is so important. And because so many men are also broken and have not themselves immersed in the Word in order to be healed, you're getting broken people and fractured people, which only causes more brokenness. So finding a community of women and of people who don't want anything but to see the betterment of those women who are coming out of these situations has to be on the forefront of the minds of our women, and so that of our women, and that's what I would definitely suggest. The next thing, obviously, would be for women who are currently in the situation. Okay, I'm in the situation. I'm a single mom. I'm in Torah. I am being preyed upon, because that is an issue, and I know that'll probably come up in part 2. I am being preyed upon by these men who are like ravenous wolves seeking a woman to put into subjection. I would say find sisterhood. One of the beauties of being in truth is that the sisterhood is much more fruitful than that of, let's say, a Christian church or a secular community. And find sisters that cover you. If you're looking for support, if there are multiple sisters who are single moms, we need to learn how to work together as a community. We need to know how to bond together and bind together and bring our resources together. It's helpful if you have another sister who is there for you, who can help you with your children. Your first option is not to get into a relationship where you're somebody's third wife. There are plenty of sisters and plenty of other single sisters with children or sisters without children who are really willing to help build up our women who have a place as nation builders in our community. So those should be some of the places that we look first before we look into the beds of men who are looking for an exchange. Your first priority is to heal yourself so that you can be healed, so that you can rear your children, because in that is your salvation, is how you raise and break those generational curses in your children before yoking up and binding together with somebody that may not yield any profit for the kingdom.
All right now. It's looking like a part 2. Thank you so much for that, Sister Huldah. Sister Malaka, we have not forgotten you. What are your closing thoughts on the conversation, Sister Malaka? Let us hear it. The mic is yours.
In closing, what I would say is, first of all, to the women who are listening, who are in this situation as a single mother, I understand what you may be going through. I was a single mother for 17 years. I feel you. I want to tell you I love you. And the Most High, the Abba Yah, loves you. And what I would say to you is, just like my sister Ashanti said, learn the scripture for yourself. You have a Ruach HaKodesh who is willing to reveal the Father to you, willing to reveal himself to you. He's willing to reveal the word to you to give you understanding. You can learn for yourself. And it's good to fellowship. It's good to listen to teachings and to find people that you respect and admire their ability to interpret Scripture and understand what's being said in Torah. But don't neglect the learning for yourself. You can learn this word. You can learn the language if you choose to. You can learn for yourself. Second thing I'm going to say is don't neglect learning for yourself, emotionally as well as spiritually. Get help if you need help. If you're hurting, get help. Talk to someone. Find a safe place. Find a safe person. If you don't know one, pray for the Most High to send one to you. I will be one for you if you need it. I have a website. You can reach out to me at www.mothermalaka.com. You can email me. We can talk. I'm on Facebook. You can message me on Facebook. I'm under Angela Malaka Phillips. What I'm saying to you is, like the other sister said, becoming a second or third or fourth wife, rushing to move your family across country to be with someone because you think that's a better position for yourself than being alone and raising your children is not wisdom. And the Ruach provides wisdom for us. So know the words and join a fellowship of righteous believers who are being balanced in the way they teach. Find a safe place to share and heal emotionally. Those are the most practical things I can tell you to do. Take care of yourself physically, emotionally, spiritually, so that you will have the strength to take care of your children.
All right. Thank you for that. That was the voice of Sister Malaka. Like everybody said, we're going to have to follow up on this. I would just say healing is a process. I once heard it said that for as long as you have had this injury, that's as long as it will take for you to heal. So if you're 20, 25, 30, 35, and your injury took place 20, 25 years ago, like an onion, like this conversation, you may think, oh, I'm healed, some Benny Hinn thing. No, it's a process. Because what may have triggered you in one space, you may think that you have dealt with that, and then at another level, you're triggered. So know yourself. Know what your triggers are. Know what your ailment is. Know what your issues are. And this is going to take, as we've heard through this conversation, honest reflection. So if the D is your weakness, or if multiple P is your weakness, then take a moment back. Because if you're going into these spaces to create more souls that you are not yet ready to sustain, you're going to do more harm than good. And so a bit of self-control is going to be necessary. I'm not speaking from what I don't know. A lot of people on the panel, we didn't just, just drop out the clouds and bam, we here. We're giving you life experiences. We're giving you what we have grown through. We're giving you our pain. We're giving you all of these things, and hopefully you'll be able to receive it, that if you're going on your way to it or if you're in it, always stay in direct communication with the Creator. The Most High, if you're honest and if you're humble with the Creator, He will guide your footsteps. And sometimes, yafatani nayit. That's the only way I could say it. Sometimes you got to let it burn, because a man or woman of worth is made what? In the fires of adversity. Sometimes you got to let it burn. Sometimes the women and the men, mostly women, are looking to jump up out the situation that your error and your injury keeps getting you into. And you want somebody to will you out of it. It doesn't work. Or pray, sisters, pray for me. My friend, sometimes you got to let it burn. This is tough love. We're giving all thanks and praise to the Most High, the Holy One of creation. Hopefully, this conversation has been edifying, entertaining, as well as, all of the lovely things that it is. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and give it over to Brother Sal. Welcome back to Season 3 of the Relationship Challenge, and visit us next week for the new episode of Under the Palm. Brother Sal, the mic is yours.
All right, family, just to let y'all know, we don't have any show Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We have a show Friday, though. So for 3 days, there's no show. I'm still trying to recover from this cold here, so give me some time. We'll be back on the air this Friday, so make sure I keep a lot of the Debate Talk for you. And by the way, you have the Debate Talk for you merchandise in the link below. If you want some T-shirts, some hoodies, it's all in the links below. It's going to be on the YouTube page, on the Blog Talk Radio page. Support the brand, and, rock for that merchandise. All right, guys, so take care. And see you on Friday.